vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee om ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkomige te oorkom en ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelele ilizwe letu nabantu balo, omesile ukulunga kipando letu. Nkosi sikelele I Afrika, kina abantuano bayo, kokelo inkokeli zayo, inike ukolo I Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Order.
Deputy Speaker.
Is there a point of order?
Yeah, Deputy Speaker, it is a point of order. I'm not sure, you know, and I'm a little bit uncomfortable to raise a point of order after a prayer, but my listening to the prayer gave me the impression that instead of asking for the province to be protected, that you actually said the party instead of the province.
Definitely not. My apologies if you hear that, but definitely not.
Okay, maybe it was just I misheard that. Sorry.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Member. So, Honourable Members, I trust that everybody's been connected to participate in the sitting of this House. In terms of Rule 1A of the standing rules, with all our members in remote attendance by electronic means. The Western Cape Provincial Parliament remains fully operational, with members also doing their work in their constituencies to assist the general public in whichever way possible, as well as our committees playing their oversight role in an effective, efficient and a transparent manner. Our sitting today will be conducted in terms of the standing rules and directives issued to me on the 17th of April 2020. Allow me just to remind you and highlight some of the important directives in this regard. Obviously, the Secretary and his administration will ensure that we have dedicated technical support at all times during the sitting. The quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are as provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules. And unless there's an indication of unanimous concurrence, voting will take place by members present and entitled to vote to cast their votes by clearly identifying themselves to the presiding officer, verbally expressing their votes. Members who are present have all the privileges and immunities imparted by the law. Members who are considered to be out of order by the presiding officer microphones will be muted and called to order. Attendance of members will be recorded by the Sergeant of Arms. And in instances where these directives do not cover a particular eventuality, the standing rules must apply. Members, all your microphones have been muted, and you're requested to only unmute your microphone when you need to raise a point of order in terms of the standing rules. And remember to first state your name and surname and to use the hand little icon on the chat function so that we can actually see you. And then the media have been granted access to this meeting as guests of the WCPP. However, the members of the media may not use the chat room, speak or activate their cameras. So as ruled by the presiding officer in the sitting of the House of the 23rd of April 2020, no interjection shall be permitted during the debate. And as there is no debate today, I also just remember to draw your attention to the honourable members to Rule 40 of our standing rules. Honourable members, we are now going to proceed to interpellations. Our first interpellation is with the Honourable Minister Bredell. I recognise the Minister. Minister Bredell, please check that you are unmuted and please start again. I see that you're still muted. Minister Bradell, I can't hear you. I see that you are still muted. If the IT staff could please assist. No.
The MEC is still muted. He must unmute himself.
I can see that, Honourable Member. I'm just going to try and see if there's anything that I can do on this side. Minister Bradell, can you hear us? No, you might just have to check on your computer that you're not muted. I tell you what I'm going to do in order to proceed smoothly. Minister Bradell, if we could leave you till after the next interpellation, will that be okay? Okay. If I can ask, is Minister Fritz perhaps ready? If we could start interpellation 2 in order to sort out Minister Bradell's microphone. Minister Fritz, are you there? Minister Fritz? Minister Fritz, can you hear me? Okay, also can't hear you. So, honourable members, I wonder if we seem to have technical problems. Can we just stop for a second and give IT a few minutes? So if we can just adjourn for 5 minutes, we will re-adjourn once we have sorted the microphones out. It seems our ministers are not being able to be heard. The meeting is adjourned for now for another 5 minutes.
All in order, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Cameron, can you sing a song while we're waiting?
I was going to ask you, Member Murray.
Yeah, I think we must actually acknowledge that Honourable Murray is a much better singer than me, and
Minister, if I can ask that that be done, that seemed to work. Can we
you hear
proceed?
me?
I can hear
There's
you.
Albert also in now.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
great.
So can we start again with interpellations? And we'll start with interpellation 1. I recognize the Honourable Minister Bradell.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thank you to Honourable Smith for the interpellation. Yes, all municipalities suffered a loss of income during the lockdown period. The COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing lockdown were preceded by a global negative macroeconomic outlook, which had already impacted municipalities' revenue collection capabilities. The effect of the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent lockdown has therefore had a compounding negative effect on our municipalities' cash flow and ability to collect revenue from its ratepayers. As industries and business closed amidst the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing lockdown, widespread job losses and temporary losses of income across the sectors occurred throughout the province, which resulted in communities and business not being able to pay for municipal services. The experience of many communities has been one of increased food insecurity and hunger. In an attempt to alleviate some of the pressures experienced by the communities and businesses, municipalities considered various options to relieve the resultant socio-economic plight. Firstly, in some cases, municipalities has given residents payment holidays to both households and businesses. Additionally, councils approved funding to either implement or support existing food security initiatives, and as a result, spent around about 7 million rand for this purpose. The cumulative impact has been devastating on the revenue collection and financial sustainability of municipalities in this province, with some municipalities such as City of Cape Town with a loss of 1 billion rand in April 2020, 1.2 billion rand in May, Mossel Bay 84.3 million rand up to the end of May, Knysna 13 million rand in April, experiencing significant losses, revenue losses. In general, municipalities in the Western Cape have reported a month-on-month reduction in revenue of between 20 to 30%. This did not only have an impact on the financial sustainability of the municipalities in the long term, but also on their cash flow in the immediate term. To this extent, municipalities have approached the Minister and the head of the department with a request to facilitate a process to propose practical and sustainable solutions to address these challenges. This has also created a unique opportunity for us as a collective to relook at revenue streams, revenue management and service delivery levels against affordability, with the view to put more sustainable revenue models for municipalities in place and ensure viability. Resultant to this, a special committee was established under the leadership of the head of the Department of Local Government and the Provincial Treasury that includes senior officials from both departments and various municipalities. The role of this committee is to assist municipalities with revenue enhancement strategies to ensure their financial survival, taking cognizance of the new normal that COVID-19 has brought about. Big creditors such as Eskom and the Auditor General were approached to review payment arrangements and audit fees as an immediate intervention measures as agreed to by the committee. As a longer-term intervention measures, the Department of Local Government, in collaboration with the Hans Seidel Foundation, have commissioned the University of Stellenbosch to design a financial and operational sustainability model for municipalities inside the new normal. This model will assist in ensuring the operations and financial resilience of municipalities during and post the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I recognise the Honourable Smith.
Deputy Speaker, the recent announcement by Minister Mboweni of an additional 7 billion allocation to local government in the supplementary budget is welcomed. The Western Cape must stop this up. Up until now, the provincial government has only allocated 16 million for humanitarian relief programs. The unwelcome visit by the COVID-19 means governments have to operate under a great deal of uncertainty. But how are our municipalities going to deal with this if they don't receive the much needed support from the province? How are they going to pay salaries and the other expenses such as ESCOM bills? I ask this deliberate question because majority of municipalities has dysfunctional councils which have been destabilized by political interference of those entrusted with the oversight responsibility over them. Others are in financial distress. Take for instance the Drakenstein municipality with a loan debt of 1.63 billion, low revenue streams, as well as depleted cash reserves. In tabling the 2021 budget, the executive mayor of Drakenstein stated that a review of municipal projects and programs was critical in order to best serve the community with limited resources and the financial strain caused by a current and projected revenue loss. This will go a long way in impacting service delivery. It will have a detrimental effect on ratepayers who have already endured a lot over the years, as the municipality had to take money meant for service delivery to service its debt. In the 2021 budget for the municipality, we noted a decrease in the capital budget from 378 million in 2019 to 217 million this year. This is mainly affected by the attempts to decrease the municipality's gearing ratio. How do we then expect such a municipality to function well if the province will not support them? What support is the MEC giving in addition to the so-called COVID-19 budgets by municipalities? Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member, I recognise the Honourable America.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for your response in terms of what your department is doing to assist municipalities who are in distress or who may suffer a reduction in revenue income due to the unwelcome visitor, namely COVID-19. But Minister, having listened to your response, could you further state additional measures that you or further elaborate on what your department has done or could possibly do with regard to the kind of assistance that municipalities need? One, being have municipalities continue to provide basic services during this lockdown period up to now, such as water services, refuse collection and power during this particular pandemic? Secondly, has the provincial department assisted municipalities in lifting certain restrictions, such as water, in municipalities in order to alleviate difficult economic circumstances faced by residents? Thirdly, how vitally important COVID-19 messages have been distributed to municipalities, especially within remote or rural areas that do not have access to the internet? Furthermore, what is the current cooperation between municipalities and the South African Police Services or National Defence Force during lockdown to ensure the safety and to prevent opportunistic crime within our municipal boundaries? And lastly, are credit control measures suspended in any of the province's municipalities to further assist those municipalities who face financial hardship at this particular time? Thank you, Speaker, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise Honourable Smith.
Deputy Speaker, the reality is that our municipalities are cold face of this pandemic and are the key implementers of government's response to it. The economic impact of COVID-19, particularly the loss of jobs and revenue for local businesses, will have a direct impact on the work of municipalities. As already stated, many municipalities have reported revenue loss. This in turn leads to challenges in managing cash flows and may lead certain municipalities into debt traps. Over and above this, the rising unemployment rate will also have a bearing on the high numbers of incidents in municipalities. The increased allocation announced in the supplementary budget is a welcome addition, but will not go far enough to assist municipalities during these tough times. Municipalities don't have much resources to carry out its responsibilities to the people, particularly the most vulnerable in society. Today, we say the provincial government must come to the party. It must assist municipalities financially to get through these challenging times. Failure to do that will clearly affect the poor, as this would impact on services such as water, electricity, and refuse removal. To cushion the poor, we need more financial injection into municipalities. What we want is for the MEC to tell us that he has been engaging the Treasury and the Premier to get more funds to support municipalities. The 16 million allocation that he gave municipalities was only for humanitarian relief and disaster management. Clearly, this is not enough to assist municipalities in financial distress. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise the Minister.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you, and thank you to the members. Yeah, I think this is a very, very important debate, so I try to not to politicise it, but we need to be clear on this, and I really hope that the Standing Committee we will engage going forward, because financial sustainability within municipalities, it's to the best interest of all of us. What COVID has done is also lift out the weaknesses within the system. So it's not our role to dictate to municipalities. We're there to support and to monitor municipalities, and the municipalities who work with us and where we had a joint effort to work together is the successful municipalities. All of a sudden, and yeah, we speak to Eskom, etc., but Eskom must also pay their bills. So it's important that we get that financial discipline going right through the system, where municipalities get the income from selling electricity. They should and must pay Eskom, and can't just use that money for other gaps. Then we must realize that the municipalities got a rate and the tax base. So the financial systems within municipalities is crucial that we do get it right over time. And we must not start to point fingers, because a lot of fingers will point back to us. We definitely in the department won't politicize this this system or the current COVID situation. We try our utmost best to help and to support our municipalities wherever we can. We in constant conversations with Treasury. They understand the pressure municipalities are under as well, but we need to understand that the whole country is under financial stress. The province also. So it's to find that right balance. You must spend money on health, you must spend money on education, and where do we get the balance? So currently where we sit, we report back to Cabinet this week still that all basic services are normal within this province. To Honourable America, that so that's also an answer to your question on basic services. It's normal within this province. It's not perfect, but it's normal, and most people do have access to. The remote areas, we communicate to them through radio, through pamphlets, and then also through their municipalities. The safety issue is obviously working closely with the police, especially the police in the municipal space. The worrying aspect currently is, and it's not only in this province, it's throughout the country. Most of our big provinces struggle with this, and that illegal land invasions, and how we're going to deal with that going forward. Credit control was not suspended. Municipalities did relax their credit control. Your credit control policy for me personally stands on two legs. Those who can pay must pay their municipal bills, and those who can't must be assisted. And most of our municipalities worked out a leaner system to support their communities, and I'm very proud of them. But we're going to face challenging time, and I do appeal to the Standing Committee, let's take hands, let's work together, and let's work on this sustainability and the financial sustainability model that we're busy designing with our municipalities. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Before we proceed, Honourable Lecker, is your hand raised for the point you've put in the chat group?
Yes, Deputy Speaker, good afternoon. Deputy Speaker, yes. Can I...
You want to clarify?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Speaker. There's one aspect that I think I need to bring to your attention. which has already been raised by member Cameron Dagmo, because I want to believe that in your prayer you said the interest of your party instead of the people. And therefore, I would like to request that we listen to the Hansard and you make a ruling in that regard.
Absolutely. If there was any error in reading the prayer, I'll certainly retract that, but we will listen to Hansard. That's not a problem at all. If that was, must have been an error. But I'm not sure now. We will absolutely retract. If you can put your hand down on Waleka, that would be great.
Thank you.
Can move over. Thank you. To the second interpellation, I recognize Honourable Fritz.
Good afternoon, Speaker. Good afternoon to all the honourable members. The interpellation by Mr. Honourable Christians, that the question was whether there was a spike in crime, an increase in crime, in the crime rate during the lockdown when we moved over to level 3. So the answer I get from the South African Police Services, and please note this is the answer from the South African Police Services, was no. The majority of priority crimes continue to show a decrease when compared to the same period during 2019 last year. And then the second part is our answer, what we are doing. The department has been monitoring, this is Department of Community Safety, has been monitoring the forensic pathology data on homicides, in other words, on murders, which show that the number of murders increased under alert level 4 and further increased under alert level 3, though the number of murders under level 3 is still slightly less than the 2019 statistics. Now, if I say slightly less, remember at some point the average murder was literally 110, 112. If I say slightly less, it is down to 94 or 95. But last weekend, we saw the murders right up to 127 over that weekend again. So we're almost back at the levels of pre-COVID levels now. And we did in fact see a huge decrease under level 5 and level 4. So thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I recognise Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, it's hard to believe what the South African Police Services are saying. There was a survey, University of Cape Town, said Cape Town is in crime crisis. It was done by the Mexican Council for Public Safety and Criminal Justice, ranked the mother city as the 8th most violent city in the world. Gay Lamb, Director of Safety and Violence Initiative at the University of Cape Town, said access to illegal firearms plays a huge part. And then he says, we amongst the most dangerous cities, we in the top 10, we 8th. Now, just to confirm that, and I think the Minister is much aware of what's happening now, again, with the surge in gang violence. I just got an article the other day to say that last month there were 12 murders already in Delft and 15 this month to date. And it's the load shedding is also playing a role now, because they are saying that when the lights goes off, there's more crime, and maybe the Minister can confirm that. But the problem is that what we have, Minister, and I know, I mean, I've been long on the committee, and I know what is your responsibility and what is SAP's responsibility, but you are on record saying that we will halve the murder rate in your safety plan in the next 10 years. And it doesn't seem that way. It seems that the murder rate is spiking and spiking. And, we spoke about your targeted crime hotspots approach. Somehow it must show some dividends, because here again, when I heard the people of Delft talking, they spoke about, we at all the police stations, we have a shortage of vehicles, we have a shortage of staff, but they say the big thing is that shooting day and night. And also the release of those prisoners didn't help us also further now. And what the survey is also saying is that people have access to ammunition and firearms. So I don't know, how are we going to reduce the murder rate if these criminals run? And it seems to me that they don't have, there's no end into the ammunition and guns that they get. I don't know from where. So Minister, I hear what you say with the police, and for me it's still too many murders, still too many violence, still too many gunshots. And as your department, okay, thank you, Speaker. I'll stop there. Deputy Speaker.
Apologies for interrupting. Thank you very much. I recognize Honourable Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you to the Minister for the answer. For the answer in this regard. I also note the comments made by Member Christians. Thank you for sharing that information, sir. Minister, in terms of, if I understand that all our efforts to attract investment, to create jobs, and to build a working and inclusive economy will be so much more difficult considering COVID-19, but also the unacceptable levels of crime, which obviously affects all communities and businesses. If I can ask, what interventions has your department specifically undertaken, particularly within the allocated targeted hotspots, to reduce crime and to prevent the spread of COVID-19, but then to also get information on what your department is doing in order to address alcohol-related harms? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Allen. I recognise Honourable Karma.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In June, Minister Cele lamented the surge in murder numbers since the country moved to level 3. The numbers doubled when compared to an earlier period of lockdown. Many experts had warned that crime would spiral out of control when the country moved to level 3. The provincial government ignored the warnings when it advanced calls for a reckless, abrupt end of lockdown. We ponder what was the MEC's contribution to these calls. Now more than ever before, SAPS need all the support of the Metro Police as well as the law enforcement officers. As part of the Western Cape safety plan, we paid millions to train and deploy law enforcement officers to fight crime in gang-infested communities. We have to ask whether is there value for money for our investment as the province. When these law enforcement whom we train to fight crime are deployed to poor communities to terrorize the poor, like we have seen in Hout Bay and at Embolweni in Khayelitsha. We deployed 500 law enforcement officers to communities, but there is no impact after so many months. What has been the work of law enforcement officers during this period? Is it only to partake in the inhuman evictions? We were misled into believing that the trained law enforcement officers would operate under the SAPS command. That has not happened. We're in a process of wasting money to satisfy JP's ego, as he has always wanted to have a personal army. Clearly, this is what is envisaged in the DA's call for a provincial police control, where characters like Angus McKinsey and JP will interfere with policing functions. If we can't have these law enforcement officers as a crime-fighting structure under the SAPS command, then we might as well stop wasting money and close the program. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think, Deputy Speaker, the questions that have been raised about the Western Cape Safety Plan are relevant in the circumstances. The plan was announced with a lot of fanfare. It was the biggest, the boldest, the most expensive safety plan ever. And I think we've seen in the details that the plan is probably the most expensive. But there are questions that we can raise about whether it is a prudent and efficient use of 1.3 billion rand and whether it will make the Western Cape safer. The plan and the Premier committed to reducing violent crime in the province, with the halving of the murder rate being the measure for successfully achieving this. So we have to ask questions like, why then is the funding being used to add 100 new anti-land invasion law enforcement officers in the city? Since the suspension of evictions during the lockdown regulations, we've all witnessed how the city has used this unit to conduct violent and unlawful evictions on the Cape Flats. And yesterday, the Western Cape High Court called the city's conduct deplorable and grotesque. So is this what our parliament agreed to fund? And how does it reduce violent crime or halve the murder rate? Now we see the cities establishing from the 1st of July a rural safety unit, and it makes reference to the LEAP funding. So this unit was not part of the approved plan. So how can the funding be used outside of the plan to create a rural safety unit? And is this rural safety unit part of the city's police plan? Is it an approved policing intervention? When did the plan change? And what part of the safety plan was abandoned in order to create this unit from the funding that the city received from the province? I think there are a lot of questions about the efficacy and the legitimacy of this Western Cape safety plan, given what we're seeing and how the funding is being used by the province, by the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Speaker. Deputy Speaker, thank you for that. Minister, I think the statistics of SAPS comparing last year to this year, that is what I was not referring to that. I was referring to under level lockdown 5, 4, and 3. Did the murder rate, and Honourable Karma just confirm those figures. But Minister, you must realize when we speak and we are concerned because we represent communities. Again, I don't know if you saw an organization that picketed at the Belleville Magistrate Court on Monday at the murder trial of Korki and a 7-year-old daughter. And, you know, they were saying crimes committed against women and children mean nothing to the authorities, means nothing to government. And I said it before, when people refer to government, they don't refer to local, provincial, and they blame government as a whole. And so they say we, as a government, don't care about what's happening to our women and children. I see somebody was arrested, but you know, the arrest is a known gang member. You understand? So my question again, Minister, is with your safety plan, and I'm talking about where you and your department have authority, what are you going to do to reduce crime and with the money invested in crime, fighting this crime? Because you know, I mean, you out there, we out there, we as members out there, our communities are not safe. They don't feel safe under level lockdown 3. They felt safer under 4 and 5. So Minister, all that I want to know from you is, what do we tell the people on the streets when they say we cannot even leave our houses to go to work because we will be robbed and killed? So I'm going to park it there. I think you know my heart. My heart is, how do we do this together to assist our communities to be safer? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Fritz.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Christians, Akama, Honourable Regan, Honourable Heron. I really take it in the spirit that you are saying. I mean, and you know, we've always said from the beginning that this will be a collective issue. This will be all of government issue. This will be all of society issue. This will be all of community issue. You know, there's not going to be any kind of silver bullet and magic kind of wand that's going to be, you know, displayed to just resolve this. We have very, very, very serious systemic issues in our society, and we need to address that. You think a plan is just going to change it after first few months? Then you please better wake up, all of us, really. And I'm not talking specifically to Honourable Christians always raises it in a very constructive, but some of the other members seems to be sleeping through a revolution. perhaps we need to wake up from this sleep and realize there's a revolution, and it's compounded by COVID. It's compounded. Guys, we're not in a normal situation. We're in a completely abnormal situation, honorable members. But I also want to remind the honorable members that there are two parts to this safety plan. There's not just a policing part of the safety plan. There's also a violence prevention component. That's a far more interventionist component. That's a far more proactive, not responsive, proactive response to addressing violence in and targeting those 11 areas. We have seen, Honorable Heron, that those 11 areas are responsible for more than 50% of the murders in the province. And again, our research from the Department of Community Safety showed that 47% of the very recent murders came from those 11 areas. So the hotspots has not changed. It's still like that. Delft is one of our areas. You know, someone raised Delft. That's one of our intervention areas that we're targeting. Now, when people talk about, you know, Honorable Heron, when you talk about the law enforcement component that we now are dealing with the city with the 500, it seems as if there was never ever a law enforcement entity in the city. It seems as if our 500 are the only ones, that we also do the land invasions, that we do all this and that. And I really want to say we have, and you raised a very, very, I think it was Honorable Kama and Honorable Christians that raised a very important point. We have insisted in our TPA and our transfer payment agreement with the city that those law enforcement component, that extra law enforcement officers, that they be aligned also to the South African Police Services, and that they target those 11 areas. Nothing else, that they target the 11 areas. And I think that's an important part, because that's the only way we're going to get those figures and those totals and those numbers halved. That we continue to target. I can tell you we have officials working hard behind the scenes to also just get the relationships right. You know, there's contentious relationships in the South African Police Service. I mean, just recently they threw, because of national politics, they threw out our law enforcement representatives at the Provincial. We had to then deal with it and speak again. So to have them readmitted, I must say, one of the persons in the province that's really almost completely unbiased and with no issues is really the issue of the provincial commissioner, who's trying to get results in this province. But I also want to address, someone spoke about, and I think it was the Honorable Christians that spoke about the availability of ammunition. And that's a very, very interesting point that you're raising, because we have been asking, and we are busy, we're having, in our research department, in the Department of Community Safety, we're looking at what a mechanism can we introduce in where ammunition is sold in, you know, these shops that sell guns and ammunition.
Minister, finish off, please.
How we can actually imprint a serial number that link that ammunition to the person who purchased it, because there's nothing at the moment. So no one knows from where it is coming. And that will be one of the ways that we will be able to trace murders, etc. Thank you very much, Honourable.
Thank you very much. We move on to Honourable Members. It seems like I might have made an error in judgment and in words around saying party instead of people. If that is the case, I actually want to formally retract, and that was complete error in my words. But I'd like to now move over to interpellation 3, and I recognize Honourable Fritz again.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And I also want to thank the Honourable Kleko for that question. And this pertains to this illegal, you know, this land invasion incident that happened in Khayelitsha. So on the 2nd of July 2020, I condemned the conduct of the City of Cape Town law enforcement officers in Khayelitsha, which infringed on the human dignity of a resident in the province. I also welcome the swift action by the City of Cape Town for the suspension of the 4 officers for their poor conduct, subject to further investigation and disciplinary procedures. And I want to emphasize, subject to a full investigation, and of course then whatever disciplinary action will procedures that will emanate from that, because we seems to just make a lot of assumptions without looking and investigating everything properly. a video was taken of the law enforcement officers responding to a land invasion belonging to the city of Cape Town, earmarked for services to the community in the area. Numerous operations have been conducted by the city on previous occasions to prevent illegal occupation of land. And allow me also immediately to say, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that there seems to be an orchestrated and well-planned campaign. It's not just people who need a team. These guys are pulling up with BMR footage, shows people pulling up with BMWs and almost earmarking land. And we suspect that the land has been sold to people, to poor people, and sold, and someone is making money out of this. I'm also glad that the city of Cape Town is treating these allegations with the seriousness it deserves. While many of our police and law enforcement officials work under immense pressure, the infringement of human dignity in this way can't be tolerated. It can never ever be tolerated. It is therefore necessary to respond to such cases proportionately. The city of Cape Town has subsequently informed me that no evictions were earmarked on that particular area or carried out. The city has only conducted anti-land invasion operations, which the national government has confirmed that all municipalities have a responsibility to carry out. Based on that, based on what is seen in the initial video footage released to the public by the NGOs present during the anti-land invasion operation, the city of Cape Town suspended 4 officials pending the outcome of an investigation that was initiated. The land in question is protected by a court order due to its forming part of a 162 million rand water infrastructure project aimed at connecting thousands of Khayelitsha residents with high-pressure water access and providing the necessary infrastructure for more housing development to be delivered. It should be noted that the Western Cape government does not have a direct oversight mandate over law enforcement officers. Both the Independent Police Investigative Directorate and the Western Cape Police Ombudsman oversight function is limited to the South African Police Services and Metro Police. The department is currently in the process of amending the Western Cape Community Safety Act to enable us to have oversight also over law enforcement agencies. The City of Cape Town Civilian Oversight Committee, established under the South African Police Services Act number 68 of 1995, has oversight over the municipal police force. The City of Cape Town has extended its oversight to include all Metro Police, traffic and law enforcement officers. This unit can be activated for reporting and oversight purposes. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I recognise Honourable Kleho.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Since the beginning of the lockdown period, the Western Cape experienced a series of unlawful conduct, which has been exercised by the municipalities and as well as the law enforcement in the province. This conduct comes in the form of unlawful evictions of our people, and that all those people that are living in informal settlement by the law enforcement officials. This went as far as doing it under the guise of land occupation prevention, which is a serious challenge because they utilize and they misuse their power to go and evict people without any form of a court order that is allowing them to do so. Now, what we want to understand, Minister, that under your stewardship, how does it happen that your people that are supposed to be preventing inhuman treatment of our people in the province are in the forefront of ensuring that there is degradation that is happening of our people? Because we have seen that the police and the law enforcement are always in the forefront without carrying any legal document that would assist them in removing people who illegally occupied any piece of land. But now they are being utilized as some form of a gang that is utilized by J.P. Smith to terrorize our people, in particular in the city of Cape Town. So that's what we want to understand. What is your intervention in terms of making sure that the law enforcement under your stewardship is doing this with following all the proper procedures in terms of the law? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognise Honourable Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, like the Minister said, police brutality, whether it's SAPs or law enforcement or security officers, should be rightly condemned, as any form of police brutality is a violation of human rights and dignity. And I too look forward for the investigation to be concluded ASAP. But also, and seeing that the Minister touched on land invasions, obviously the actions of those who profit from the sale of illegally invaded land and who instigate land invasions and protests to protect vested and criminal financial interests should also be condemned, and that should also be probed. But I want to check from the Minister, in terms of some of the most recent investigations that has been conducted by the police ombudsman, if he can share more information on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Allen. I recognise Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the question that I would like to ask is for the Minister is the problem that we have, Minister. I mean, as the SDP, we can never condone illegal land invasions. But what I want to talk about is the conduct of these officers. Now, firstly, the problem that I have is that you don't have direct oversight over these guys, but yet we give money. So I'm glad you're talking about amending legislation, because you cannot give money and not have oversight, because this is going to spiral back to you and to the province, because you have a hand in it, because all the newspapers, all the media covers bad publicity for Cape Town. And the big problem that we had was there was debate, must it be done, the investigation internally or externally, and all that debate. So what is your role, Minister? I saw what you said on the 2nd. It was recorded in the newspapers on the 3rd of July. You condemned it. But what is your role? What is your action to make sure that the investigation is done properly? And how does the reporting system work? Because as a province, I think because we have money in law enforcement, there should be some form of interaction or to get the right result. So that is my question. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Christians. I recognise Honourable Karma.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, Black people and Africans in particular have endured centuries of slavery, inhuman treatment and gross violation of their basic human rights, with the police force being utilized to unleash such atrocities. The violence meted against them in this day and age has to be condemned with the contempt it deserves. We have to ask for how long our people must be treated like exiles in the land of their forefathers. While Member Xhego correctly asked what the MEC has done, I want to rather call on this House to take responsibility in responding to brutal violation of human rights of the people of the Western Cape. As a point of departure, we have to address the elephant in the room. Where are these brutally lawless law enforcement officers accounting? We know SAPS has IP'd and the duplicate provincial structure of the police ombudsman to investigate its efficiencies. While the question today might be about inhuman evictions of a naked man, the House must also note that a SAPS officer died in the hands of these freelance law enforcement officers. Clearly, the House must approach this lawlessness holistically. The amendment of the Western Cape Safety Act.
Honourable Karma, 1 minute. Honourable one, okay. Is there a point of order, Honourable Murray? Honourable Murray, you have your hand up.
It's not a point of order. I'm sorry, okay. I will lower my hand.
Honourable Karma, my apologies for interrupting you. You can continue.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We agree that the Safety Act must be an amendment to allow the Western Cape Police Ombudsman to have an oversight role over the law enforcement officers, and their inclusion in the RPID Act is necessary. The prohibition of these two critical bodies in the work of this contingent of officers is a direct creation of a policing system within another, in line with the DA call for a provincial police force. Lastly, Deputy Speaker, I want to put it to you that The processed suspension of the law enforcement officers was a window dressing exercise. They were acting under a command. City of Cape Town must be called before the standing committee to account on who issued orders of the eviction. The mayor and the MMC, JP Speed, must account. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize Honourable Clerco.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Speaker. Coupling with what Honourable Kama has just now said, indeed that we welcome the investigation that would be done in terms of ensuring that we bring to book those law enforcement that resulted in that dehumanization of that gentleman. But the challenge that we're having is that indeed those who have issued the instructions have never been brought to book. The mere officers who are at the production level were the easy targets in terms of ensuring that they are brought to book. But who else gave them the instruction, because they do not act on their own? And secondly is that whilst we all condemn land invasions that are happening in our province, we should equally do so with the encroachment, land encroachment that is predominantly done by white farmers in ensuring that they still land, just like it is happening in the townships where our people are being accused of land invasion. So where are these law enforcement being seen when it comes to farmers who are stealing land in terms of encroachment? Land invasion and land encroachment should be equally treated by your department, who is so much determined to prevent any land taking in the province. So what is your department doing about the issue of land encroachment that is being done in terms of treating it equal to the land invasions that you are concerned about? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise the Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I really want to ask the honourable members, and I think in my lengthy reply, when I responded earlier to the first question, I made the point that this was not an eviction, and I think I'm looking for. In fact, I've heard that the city will take that judgment by Judge Sali Slope on review on appeal, and I think they should take it on appeal, because we need to get some legal clarity on whether land can just be invaded and be left alone. And I also want to say to Honourable Otlego, if he talks about land encroachment by white farmers, please tell me where it's happening so that we can act. You must give us some, the facts so that we can respond to it and see that it don't happen if it's illegal. Because no form of occupation illegally or taking other people's property, this is not legal. You can't have syndicates running these, and you say nothing about it. This is the point that I can't understand. Not one of the members are commenting on the fact that there seems to be, in fact, we have far more evidence emerging of syndicates running these land invasions organized. And that's why the national ministers are quiet. And when land invasions happens in Johannesburg, with the red ants treating people like absolute animals, not one of you make any comment about it. So we agree completely that any operation must be done with human dignity. And I want to say to Honourable Christians, I completely support his position on the conduct of officers, and therefore we are amending the act to include law enforcement officers to also have, so that we can have oversight over their conduct. And I also agree with him completely. If we fund some of our projects, then we have a right to actually ask that people conduct them properly. And a very interesting instance we had, I don't know whether people saw the video on social media and WhatsApp all over, where 3 law enforcement officers were driving down the road chasing a young boy, a youth running, and they were swearing at him in the most vile language that you can ever experience. I want to say we picked it up, we immediately alerted, and we insisted that they all be suspended. And I want to say this, on the same day they were suspended, for that kind of conduct. Because you're not supposed to be glorified gangsters when you're a law enforcement officer. You're not supposed to be, doing issues and conduct that's illegal, and specifically I said earlier about human dignity, we need to do things within the framework of the Constitution and with human dignity. And so I'm really looking forward to the appeal of that case, because it's okay to talk about the emotions and the moral issues, that's fine, and deal with that, but there's also law, stuff that's hardcore law, and land to occupy other people's land is illegal. And it stays illegal. Whoever occupies it, when you're black or white or anything, and by the way, Honorable Kama, all of us suffered under all those laws, not only black, everyone suffered. And Honorable Maria will tell you how all of us suffered in this country under apartheid. There wasn't selective who suffered, and there's no degrees of suffering. That's absolute nonsense. Human dignity is human dignity. There's no degrees of infringement of human dignity. It's as if other people didn't suffer, as if only certain people suffered in this country. No, everyone suffered, and all of us suffered the same. We were kicked out of places like anyone else. Our dignity was infringed like anyone else. So I think let's not racialize suffering. Suffering is suffering. And you know how some people who are very poor and they happen to be white, you know how they suffered. So it's not a thing of your color, it's about suffering as a human being. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Emotions are high.
Thank you
White
very
people
much.
suffering.
For you.
Members,
Wow,
order.
white people suffer.
Order, members, please.
Where?
Can we have some order in the court? Honourable members, where it concludes interpellations, we're now moving over to questions. And just to remind you that you have 4 opportunities per question, and I will give the first opportunity to the honourable member that posed the question. I now move over to Honourable Minister Burdell.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to Honourable Member Smith for the question. In response to the question posed by the Honourable Member, there were statements of such allegations of abuse and or politicizing by councillors in the distribution of food parcels at intergovernmental forums raised by the municipalities. Therefore, in preventing such abuse of politicizing by councillors, a protocol guideline and correspondence was distributed to all municipalities which aligned the role of the councillors during the lockdown and applicability of the COVID-19 regulations, and the role and involvement of councillors in non-profit organizations in determining and preventing any form of misuse. These communities recommended and emphasized that councillors should not be involved in the collection and distribution of food parcels to communities, as this would be coordinated by the municipalities in conjunction with the relevant provincial and national departments, as well as NGOs and the private sector. As a further measure of averting councillors from any form of implication, it was emphasized that the councillors refrain from being directly involved in feeding schemes initiatives by NGOs and allow the province and the local authorities and the NGOs to independently implement the relief efforts of government. In this context, it is furthermore necessary to state that the Code of Conduct for councillors becomes enforceable in particular instances where the conduct of councillors constitute a breach of the code. In such instances, the procedures as provided in the code will be applicable. Therefore, any report or referral of a breach of the code is formally brought to my attention in terms of the applicable provisions in the code. Such reports may be made in terms of item 13.3 of the code by way of the appeals as contemplated in item 14.3, and when requests are received for the suspension or the removal of councillors. In this respect, an outcome of an investigation by a speaker into allegations that a councillor had allegedly reduced food parcels had been reported to me in accordance with item 13.3 of the code. The Speaker of Hessequa Council had investigated the matter in terms of item 13.1 as contained in the Code of Conduct for Councillors, and then referred it to the Council to decide whether the alleged breach should be investigated. After the Council deliberated the report, a decision was made that the matter should not be referred to a disciplinary committee. The Municipal Council had therefore exercised its authority in terms of the item 14.1 of the Code of Conduct for Councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Before I move on, okay, that's fine. No, can I just, before I move on to Honourable Smith, just to say that the question that stood over from the Thursday 11th of June has been withdrawn. So, and I know that Honourable Kama was concerned about that, and I move over to Honourable Smith.
Deputy Speaker, thank you, MEC, for the response. I just wanted to understand from the MEC, should one have evidence that shows that councillors are indeed guilty of distributing food parcels, especially under level 4 of the lockdown, after which the national minister and also I believe the MEC gave clear direction that councillors should not be involved, and it happens to be councillors of the Democratic Alliance, even those in executive positions. Should we have evidence? Can we submit that to the MEC, and will the MEC act accordingly? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
Deputy Speaker, we as I said, we've worked out the protocol guideline to municipalities. The Speaker of the municipality is the custodian of the Code of Conduct for councillors. So we will then give it to the Speaker to investigate. Every council got a disciplinary committee, and we need to adhere to that principles. But the Honourable Smith mentioned that DA councillors and those in executive positions was part and parcel of food parcels. Let me tell you, the ANC is also guilty of this. So it doesn't make two wrong doesn't make a right. But I think it's wrong for politicians to be involved in government money and food parcels being distributed, especially the 16.2 million rand that we made available. Now, this will also be a case when we look at when councillors give their own money for food parcels, when obviously we can't dictate what they must do with their own money. But there's a disciplinary process, and we need to adhere to that disciplinary process and the Code of Conduct within municipalities.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I recognise Honourable America.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, I'd like to ask whether you know that there are allegations that there are certain councillors who own NGOs and who have contracts with different provincial departments without having declared such ownership, and they may possibly use those NGOs to distribute food parcels. Are you aware of it? And if not, would you investigate and report to the Standing Committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you, and thank you to Honourable America for the question. I'm not aware of, but I will investigate, because obviously it's very important that councillors can't do business with a municipality or with government. Then it must be mentioned in your declaration, but I will look into it and I will report back to the Standing Committee.
Thank you very much, Honourable America. If you can just put your hand down, or are you putting your hand up for a follow-up? Okay. Are there any follow-up questions around this one? Honourable Smith, I see you.
Deputy Speaker, my question, my previous follow-up question was, is the MEC prepared to investigate should we lay a complaint at his office? I understand that the custodian of the Code of Conduct for councillors is the Speaker of a municipality, but my question is directly to the MEC. Is he prepared to do an investigation should we lay such a complaint? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, we cannot be going round in circles. I've got certain authority. The authority is with the Speaker. I cannot just investigate a councillor. The Speaker and the Disciplinary Committee will investigate. That recommendation will then come to me. So if I get any complaint, if the Honourable Smith gives me a complaint, I will forward that to the Speaker and ask them to investigate that. The Disciplinary Committee will investigate it, take a report to the Council. The Council will take a decision. That decision will be forwarded to me, and I will then definitely look into that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I recognize Honourable Dugmore. Honourable Smith, is your hand up? That will be unfortunately not possible. I'm giving it to Honourable Dugmore.
Sorry, Speaker, if Honourable Smith wanted to do a follow-up, then I will withdraw. I wasn't aware that he had another follow-up, but if there's still a space after that, no, I would like to follow up.
Speaker, no, I don't have a follow-up. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Honourable Dugmore. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I would like to ask the MEC, we have a situation where the mayor of a particular municipality, i.e. the city of Cape Town, actually went and handed out food parcels in another municipality. So you obviously can't complain to the Speaker of the non-metro municipality where Mayor Dan Plato went to hand out food parcels. So is he, as the MEC, who is the custodian of the overall code of conduct, because here we have a mayor of the city of Cape Town going to another municipality to hand out food parcels, is he prepared to investigate Mayor Dan Plato?
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think my record have shown that doesn't matter who it is. If I get the complaint with the necessary documentation, I will investigate anybody.
Thank you. That concludes.
Thank you, MC.
Thank you. That concludes question 1. We move over to question 2. I recognise the Honourable Minister Bradell.
Thank you, and thank you to Honourable Smith again to the question. Yes, as a result of the national lockdown, which was announced by the State President on the 23rd of March 2020, no construction was allowed during the initial 5 weeks of Alert Level 5. The risk adjustment Alert Level 4 commenced on the 1st of May 2020, during which construction and related services for public works, including water, energy and sanitation, could commence. All infrastructure-related projects, including water, sanitation, road, storm, water, were therefore affected and were delayed between 1 and 2 months. To this extent, the following details can be provided with regards to water-related projects funded from grants administered by the Western Cape government. The municipal infrastructure grant projects affected by the lockdown, the municipal infrastructure grant funded projects of the Western Cape Provincial government had a total of 26 water-related projects budgeted in the 2019-20 municipal financial year. 11 of the 26 projects were affected by the COVID-19 lockdown in the following municipalities: Overstrand, Swellendam, Kannaland, Bitu, Knysna, Laingsburg, Prince Albert, and in Beaufort West. These projects included the construction of reservoirs, water treatment works, water pump stations, bulk water supply pipelines. Notwithstanding the delay caused by the national lockdown, all these projects has since commenced with construction. The projects were also committed at 31st of March 2020 and therefore complies with the rollover conditions. Affected municipalities are therefore eligible to apply for the rollover of funding and will be supported by the Western Cape government. The municipal drought relief grant projects affected by the lockdown, the Department of Local Government allocated funding towards 20 drought relief projects in the 2019-20 financial year with the aim of augmenting water supply, reducing water demand, and improving water infrastructure. 11 out of this 20 drought relief projects were affected by COVID-19 national lockdown in the following municipalities: Beaufort West, Laingsburg, Prince Albert, Kannaland, Mossel Bay, Tivatskloof and Matsikama. The drought relief projects included drilling, testing of equipment of new boreholes, as well as the installation of new water meters and the installation of borehole monitoring equipment. All these projects have since commenced with construction. The drought projects also comply with the relevant provincial rollover conditions. Affected municipalities can therefore apply for rollovers of the funding and will be supported by the Department of Local Government. The Department of Local Government will further continue to monitor the respective projects to ensure successful completion. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I think, Honourable Dugmore, your hand is still up from the previous question, but I see Honourable Smith, if you could put it down. Honourable Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the 20 billion rand allocation to municipalities, as announced by the President, has a specific focus on water projects and to ensure that there's sufficient water supply in municipalities. Did the Western Cape receive money from this 20 billion rand, and how is the MEC's department planning to assist those municipalities that are struggling with water supply projects? Thanks.
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, if the Honourable Smith will allow me, because I received a question on the relief package of the 20 billion in question 4, if I can answer it there, because then I can go through the whole 20 billion rand, if he doesn't mind.
Honourable Smith, are you okay with that?
I'm fine. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. I suspect there are no follow-up questions to this. All right, thank you very much. We move over to question 3. I recognise Honourable Minister Bredell.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you to Honourable America for the question. After the request by the Acting Municipal Manager for my Department of Local Government to provide support to the Knysna municipality, I provided instructions to my department together with other provincial departments to conduct a diagnostic assessment of the Knysna municipality to ascertain the current status of the municipality and also to determine how the provincial government and relevant national departments, including the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, can further provide support to the municipal council as well as the administration, including recommending Section 154 of the Constitution support package. The assessment focused on key challenges the assessment focused on key challenges the municipality are currently facing, as well as recommendations regarding the way forward in terms of which the municipal council can ensure governance, finance and service delivery stability in the municipality. Based on the findings and recommendations, a support package based on the findings and recommendations, a support package will be finalized in consultation with the municipal council administration and will also involve all identified national and provincial departments. As soon as this support package has been concluded, my department will ensure the effective implementation thereof under the leadership of the acting municipal manager. The allegations recorded in the acting municipal manager's resignation relating to outside forces having an undue influence on the affairs of the municipality were not sufficient to enable me to exercise my powers given the vague nature of the allegations. In this regard, the specific details pertaining to this allegations made by the acting municipal manager was not provided to my office that would enable me and my department to specifically consider them. This specific allegations is, however, just part of a number of allegations that we subsequently received from the community. When allegations are received relating to the potential fraud, corruption, maladministration in respect of a municipality in the Western Cape, Section 106 of the Municipal Systems Act 2000, the Systems Act requires me as the provincial minister responsible for local government to initiate a provincial investigation where one, I have reason to believe that municipality cannot or does not fulfill its statutory obligations binding, or that municipality or that administration, fraud, corruption, or any other serious maladministration has occurred or is occurring in that municipality. And secondly, I consider such an investigation necessary. It is also important to note that investigations into allegations of this nature are governed by statutory prescribed and that there are strict constitutional and statutory parameters within which provincial government can intervene in a municipality only where the legal requirements set out in Section 106 of the Systems Act read with the relevant provisions of the Western Cape Monitoring and Support of Municipalities Act 2014 are met, will an investigation be initiated by the provincial government. I have commenced with following the statutory prescribed processes applicable to the assessment of the allegations. Once this process has been completed, the decisions will be made about the most applicable steps to be taken. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable America.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for the comprehensive response to our question. I welcome the fact that your department and yourself are willing to intervene and to make sure that processes are put in place to the residents of Knysna continue to receive uninterrupted services. Deputy Speaker, with that, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other follow-up questions? No. Then we move over to question 4. I recognise Honourable Minister Bradell.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to Honourable America for the question. The reply to the question: details of the 20 billion rand set aside to assist municipalities were formally provided in the Division for Revenue Amendment Bill B9 of 2020, in terms of which the following adjustments were made to the 2020 and 2021 financial years. An additional 11 billion rand as part of the equitable share of the local government sphere to municipalities. The bill states that the additional funding should allow municipalities to maintain existing service delivery despite a temporary decline in revenue collection. The equitable share for the Western Cape municipalities was adjusted or increased with 721 million rand, 700,003 rand. Reprioritization of 9.5 billion within existing infrastructure grant allocations to municipalities. It therefore implies that no additional funding was made available to municipalities within these grants. Municipalities were only allowed to reprioritize the existing grant allocations to fund COVID-related expenditure. In the Western Cape, however, this could not be easily undertaken by municipalities, since the MIC and other grants have already been fully committed on existing projects. The B part to the question, in terms of the additional 11 billion rand allocated as part of the equitable share of municipalities, the following comparisons can be provided. If you look at the Eastern Cape, received 1.566 billion or 14.2%, Free State 0.668 billion or 6%, Gauteng 1.978 billion or 18%, KwaZulu-Natal 2.179 billion or 19.8%, Limpopo 1.717 billion or 15.6%, Mpumalanga 0.963 billion or 8.8%, Northern Cape 246 billion or 2.2%, Northwest 957 billion or 8.7%, and the Western Cape 721 billion or 6.6%. So that's my answer. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable America.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, it goes without saying that the Western Cape municipalities are the best governed municipalities in the country. Of the 20 clean audits in the country, 13 were in the Western Cape. And I think that the municipalities in the Western Cape, with what the limited financial resources at their disposal, manage these resources corruption-free and as prudently as possible. In your opinion, do you think that with that allocation of 6.75% of the equitable share, the Western Cape get its fair share of the allocation that's been set aside for COVID relief? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Member. Honourable Minister.
Honourable America, yeah, I personally think we've lost this round. I always think that we need to get to around about 10-11%. That's our fair share of the equitable share. And if there's an allocation and we get less than that, in this case 6.6%, then we definitely, from my personal opinion, we should have got more money. I do think it's to do that we managed to spend our money, we managed to be able or to be in a position to provide most of our normal basic services, but we will keep on interacting with our national colleagues, working closely with them, because certainly everybody is under pressure, and I think the COVID, it's not going to be a steep peak. It's going to a lengthy curve, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on our municipalities, on all of us. And definitely we will see to it that more and more people will lose their jobs, and at the end of the day be hungry, and we will need to have a system to support them. We're also busy now with our municipalities to write a guideline on homeless people and how we can address the homeless issue within our municipalities.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Are there any follow-up questions? No. Then we move over to question 5. I recognise the Honourable Minister Simmers.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to Member Maseko for the question. I'll answer the A and the B part. The A part, Member Maseko, is that my department identified 33 parcels of land and requested the National Department of Public Works to release the properties for human settlement development purposes. To date, only 2 of the 33 properties were released to us. Both are in the Theodorskloof municipal area, and it is thus intended for human settlement projects. Subsequent to our request, the National Department of Public Works identified a further 167 properties to which HDA needs to conduct feasibility studies prior to a decision from the National Department of Public Works. The B part of your question, Member Maseko, is that we can only take actions to develop the properties once it has been released either to the department via the HDA, Member Maseko. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, if I can ask, Minister Delile, after occupying the office, she indicated that or made an announcement that she's going to release some land parcels to the department in Western Cape. Did that happen? And if not, did Minister maybe contact Minister Delile to inquire about those land parcels? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Member Maseko, firstly, yes, we all applauded the announcement by the National Minister of Public Works, but I think it ended at applause. There was no real tangible action afterwards, because I'll use it as an example, the Itemba site, which is earmarked as part of our de-densification program for COVID-19. A portion belonged to the South African Police Service, who already gave permission for us to utilize that portion of land. But obviously, the custodian of national-owned land is the Department of Public Works. And the Minister is yet to give power of attorney to HDA so that we can commence with our objectives for the parcel of land. So, no, as much as there was a big announcement, there's an Afrikaans saying that says we haven't tasted the pudding yet. We've only seen the pudding or heard of the pudding, but we haven't seen it yet in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Are there any follow-up questions? Honourable Heron, I see you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I mean, besides the national, the public land held by national government, the provincial government also holds significant land holdings on behalf of the public, and so do the municipalities in and around the province. And at the commencement of this term of office, the provincial government made a commitment, a rather immature commitment, I thought, that they would match the land released by the national government. So, I mean, either this government is committed to addressing homeless communities and land restitution and land distribution on its own, or to not, but to create a situation where it's only prepared to release land if the national minister releases land is an absurd proposition. But nevertheless, in the last month, the national minister of public works has released land, 18 hectares of land in Stellenbosch for human settlements, and 1,200 hectares of land to the city of Cape Town for human settlements purposes. So where's the province's matching of this, the 18 hectares and the 1,234 hectares of land? I mean, it's a really immature proposition, but it is a proposition that came from this government. And the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure has also made 6 properties available for social development purposes. So where is the provincial government's response in releasing its land holdings?
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Member Heron. Deputy Speaker, I just need your guidance on this because I just need to reflect on the question which was asked by Member Maseko. And if my memory serves me correct, I believe Member Heron is actually asking a new question. Thank you.
Okay, that's your choice. If you don't, if you choose not to answer a new question, that's fine.
Deputy Speaker.
Sorry, Honourable Heron, I can't determine, what's your point of order?
I don't see that it's a new question. How is it a new question? The question was what land has been released and how it's been developed. The Minister has ignored 2 pieces of land that the Public Works Department released for human settlements purposes, one in Cape Town and one in Stellenbosch in the last month.
Okay, thank you. Honourable Minister, are you able to answer that?
Deputy Speaker has indicated I take note of what Member Heron is asking me. If you can, I see it as a new question, which I will really answer if it can be forwarded through to me, because I want to give him a much detailed and thorough question and the answer to that as well.
Okay, that's fine. That's your choice. I see Honourable Maseko, that's the last part of the question. Your hand is up.
Thank you very much,
Honourable Speaker.
1 minute, Honourable Maseko. Who's on a point of order? Honourable Palmer.
Honourable Speaker.
Yes.
Now, firstly, when we just want to, because I want to say that when we ask questions or members ask questions in Parliament, in Provincial Parliament, they want to hold the executive to account. It's either the executive can agree to account or refuse to account. But I want to ask from you, whose discretion must it be to decide whether a member of the executive can answer a question or not? Whose discretion must that be?
So, Honourable Palmer, I'm here to preside, not to actually go into the details and merit of the answer. If the Minister has, from what I understood, did not refuse to answer, but rather said if he could have it in writing, he would answer more extensively. So I have to respect that. It is not for me to be the judge on what he answers or how he answers. He has quite clearly said he's willing to answer in writing. Moving over to Honourable Maseko, that's the last chance. Honourable Heron.
Point of order, Deputy Speaker.
Who am I speaking to?
Member Kondlo.
Member Kondlo, yes. What's your point of order?
My point of order, Deputy Speaker, is on the same matter, because I recall, and you were on the seat on the day, that when I raised exactly the same matter, because I want to debate the merit of the matter as raised by member Mvimbi, that when I raised, I think on another member, and at the time member of a DA, which was asking a different question, that I think you overruled me and said, you know, any member, when they're asking a question, they're allowed, you know, and the member of the executive can answer. So I'm just pleading for consistency so that at least the rules that are applying across in terms of how the debates are run. I don't have an issue with how the member of the executive has responded, but I'm just moving on the point of consistency, because you ruled me on the day that any other question, you know, can be a follow-up, even if it's not within the original question that was raised.
So, Honourable Member, it is the Minister's choice to choose to answer a new question should they want to do it. And they've often said, this is a new question, but I can't actually judge them on that. If he chooses, the Minister chooses not to answer what he considers a new question, I have to accept that. But as I've said, he's quite clearly stated that he will answer the question in writing. I hope that's in order. Honourable Maseko, can we finish off this question?
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, I just want to find out to what an extent does this stance of not receiving the land parcel that Minister Delile announced so nicely that he wanted to correct the past, the apartheid system that made people to stay away from the city. Is that adding pressure on the projects that maybe you were doing, you needed to implement, or there's no any effect to what you planned to implement from the department side?
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
No, thank you, Member Maseko. And obviously, you know, and I'll use as an example again the Itemba land parcel, because it relates to nationally owned land, which is the essence of your original question, which is why I'm responding to it as well. Remember that the portion of land at Itemba, as I indicated, it belonged to SAPS. They gave permission, but obviously the National Department of Public Works is the custodian, and they need to give power of attorney to HDA, then we can commence all our projects now. If you equate that to the Kosovo and the Noon site, where we are at fairly advanced stages of planning and hearing implementation once all the necessary local government processes are finalized, which means Itemba will now unfortunately happen later. And certain risks are tied to that because my national minister, Minister Sisulu, announced specific areas, the risk of land invasions, which is becoming a bigger threat in the Western Cape. You know, it has increased that risks really to such an extent that I've written more than 3 times to my national minister, but as well to Minister Delille, imploring her, when is she going to give the power of attorney to HDA, because then we can commence with the Itemba site as well. So that is placing massive risks in our project feasibility moving forward with the risks of land invasions. And if you've tracked the current issues in the city of Cape Town, land invasions are occurring more regularly now on specific parcels of land earmarked for human settlements development. And we all know the financial cost and the prolonged cost related to that once that land unfortunately has been invaded.
Thank you, Minister. Question 6 has been withdrawn. We move over to question 7. I recognise Honourable Minister Schaefer.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and to Honourable Kama for the question. The WCED and our schools implement the Provincial Protocol document dealing with child abuse, deliberate neglect and sexual offences against children, called Abuse No More. This document is guided by national legislation such as the Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Act of 2007 and the Children's Act of 2005. The guidelines provide advice on reporting incidents of abuse, how to support victims and how to deal with perpetrators. The department employs social workers in every circuit to work with schools and colleagues in social services and other agencies on cases that need special intervention. Both education and social development work with NGOs who provide support of various kinds, including counselling. The legislation divides offences into minor and serious misconduct. Serious misconduct can warrant expulsion, Examples of serious misconduct include serious absenteeism or truancy, alcohol-related offences, bomb threats and vandalism, assault and violence, drug-related offences, immoral and improper conduct, and theft and fraud. When a learner misbehaves in such a way that the infraction constitutes what the relevant law refers to as serious misconduct, the principal has the option of referring the matter to the SGB for further handling. If it is believed that the learner may be guilty of serious misconduct as determined by the Code of Conduct, then a formal disciplinary hearing must take place. The conduct of such a hearing is carefully prescribed by regulation. If, after this process is completed, it is believed that the actions of the learner warrant expulsion, then a formal recommendation is made by the SGB to the Head of Education for the learner's expulsion. It must be noted that it is only the head of a provincial education department who is afforded the power in law to expel a learner. Once received, the recommendation of expulsion is carefully considered by the HOD. After careful deliberation by the HOD, a decision will then be reached on whether to uphold or dismiss the expulsion recommendation. Then we also have social media issues. Allegations of sexual assaults that surface on social media are particularly difficult to investigate if they are anonymous. If they are brought to our attention, we can follow up and will do, but we urge any learner to report any incidents of abuse to their school or the department. Learners can also phone our toll-free Safe Schools hotline, 0800 45 46 47, to report abuse or to receive advice on issues relating to a sexual nature. Part 2 of the question is the WCED is currently investigating the allegations, and the learner involved is also the subject of an investigation by SAPS. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable Kama, is there a follow-up?
No, thank you. No follow-up.
No follow-up. Honourable Botha, I recognise you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I just want to check with the Minister, the fact that the allegation is against the son of a prominent politician, does it make any difference as to how the department investigates that allegation? Minister?
Remember, no, certainly not. Every allegation is investigated thoroughly, no matter who has been accused. We have to follow due process, no matter what. And no, it certainly doesn't make any difference. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Honourable Minister. Any follow-up questions? No. We move over. Question 8 has been withdrawn. We move over to question 9. Honourable Minister Schaefer.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And Honourable Said, no, it's not possible to evaluate whether fencing has had an impact on the number of COVID cases reported by schools, as it is obviously impossible to pinpoint the exact place where each individual who tests positive came into contact with the virus. The department has put detailed safety protocols in place to stop the spread of COVID-19 at all schools, including ones for the management of confirmed and suspected cases at schools. These are all available on the Back to School page of the WCED website. In addition, the department has spent millions of rands on cleaning and sanitizing materials, masks and digital thermometers for the daily screening process. It is important to remember that just because a positive case of COVID-19 is reported by a school, it does not necessarily mean that they were infected at the school. At present, we do not have any evidence that individuals are at greater risk of infection at school than anywhere else, and we are also not seeing evidence of mass spreading at schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a follow-up question, Honourable Sayed?
Chair, just a quick follow-up. Thank you for the response. I just wanted to get a sense, what is the Minister's view on the remarks made then by the World Health Organization about the risks of returning to schools during this particular time? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure how that relates to fences, but I will respond. I've seen the World Health Organization responses. What they said was that all factors must be taken into account when you're making a decision of going back to school. We must also remember that the World Health Organization is dealing with wealthy countries generally that have money that's available to have a good internet connection for their learners, to have people receiving their salaries and so on. But they certainly, it was not as clear-cut as some people seem to be making out. They said that it's got to be a decision that takes all factors into account, and I agree with that.
Thank you, Honourable Botha.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, in keeping up with the broken fences, what impact will the cuts to the education infrastructure grant have on the delivery of further fences and other school infrastructure? If you can speak to that, please. Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Yes, thank you for that question. It's going to have an absolutely devastating impact. Every single year, as we know, more learners arrive in the Western Cape and the demand for infrastructure spending increases, but our budget is being continuously cut. We simply have not got enough money to build new schools, install new fences, expand existing schools and the like if the money to do so is taken away. Added to these cuts is the additional cost, of course, of supporting our schools during COVID-19, which is running into hundreds of millions of rand, with no support of the government. In fact, they are taking away 159 million rand from the education infrastructure grant. So the simple fact is that we need money to pay for fencing and all other infrastructure, and it is becoming incredibly difficult, especially when people also vandalize fences. So yes, it's going to really impact very severely on us, and I'm extremely concerned about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any follow-up questions to question 9? No, then we'll move over to question 10. Honourable Simmers.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to Member Makamba Butya for the question. Firstly, this is a private matter and my department has no involvement, but just to clarify why I'm saying that, Deputy Speaker, it's because the Arcadia Place building is owned by the Cape Peninsula Organisation for the Aged, or CPOA. The building was left vacant for renovations when a group of about 200 township residents illegally took occupation of the property during September 2019. CPOA successfully applied to the High Court for an eviction order. A lawyer mandated by the occupiers responded with an urgent application for an interdict to suspend the eviction, which was granted. The second urgent application was then filed to the court. The eviction process eventually went ahead. Neither the city or the province were cited as respondents and was therefore not required to provide alternative accommodation to the evictees. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Are there any follow-up questions?
Yes, Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thanks to the Minister with regards to his response. However, even if it's a matter of it's a private matter, but these are the residents of Western Cape Province. So I just want to find out from the Minister, in cases of this nature, does your department normally work closely with the City of Cape Town in trying to find solutions for people in the state? If so, what has your department done so far with regards to assisting these specific residents? And if not, why is this department not doing anything about the matter? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Deputy Speaker has stated this is a private matter, and like in all other private matters, my department really is not involved, nor is the City of Cape Town, unless we are cited as respondents, then we become involved in certain matters. Once the due processes of the court has gone its way, and the evictees then approach the City of Cape Town for assistance, then obviously together between ourselves and the City of Cape Town, we then seek to find possible solutions how we can assist the evictees, because ultimately we as a provincial government, we do respect the rule of law, and we only come and assist where at such a stage where we are requested to do so, or where we can ultimately assist these. But in this instance, it's a private matter, Honourable Deputy Speaker. We respect the process and the rule of law. We weren't cited, nor the City of Cape Town, and as such, we will then just observe the matter until such time that the City of Cape Town is approached by these evictees, because remember, the local governments also has their responsibility. Even when people approach my department, I will approach the City of Cape Town, because once again, it's within their boundaries as a municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Kamba?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I understand what the Minister is saying. What I want to understand, has your department done anything to rescue these people? Is there any assistance that you have provided to these people as the government of Western Cape, regardless of whether the matter is a private matter? What have you done from your office in terms of assisting these people?
Okay, Deputy Speaker, I can confirm that to date, because of the nature of But the matter that I'm being questioned about, we as the provincial department, we have not done anything because, like I said, we were not cited as respondents in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Kama, your hand is up.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think the follow-up I wanted to have it's partly covered in the response, because I wanted to understand because the question still at the end says these people are now currently staying in tents, in self-made tents outside, and now I wanted to check if the department can commit to finding solutions, as these are part of the residents of the Western Cape who have a right to access adequate housing as enshrined in Section 26 of the Constitution.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Member Kama. Member Kama, what I will do is, because it's within the jurisdiction of the City of Cape Town's municipal boundaries, I will immediately write to them today, actually on this matter, to alert them to these facts, and also to ask them, how we can possibly work together to address this matter, because once again, it's also residents within the greater province of the Western Cape. And once all due process have done its course, obviously my first port of call will be the City of Cape Town, because it's their residents, but where I can, I will assist as far as humanly and financially possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes the end of questions for oral reply. We now move over to statements by members in terms of Rule 145. I recognise the DA.
Deputy Speaker, residents of our country have been afflicted with discouraging news and plagued with concern. In the DA-led Western Cape, as we approach the peak, we are able to turn our concern into courage. A capable government that has made use of the lockdown period to enable all of its beds in field hospitals to ensure that those residents that need in-hospital treatment are cared for, and that we remain ahead of the peak. A written reply in the NA revealed that the country will have 3,600 additional beds available. Already 1,268 of these beds have been provided by the Western Cape government, all ready for utilization, whilst in other provinces, the majority of the remaining beds are still under completion. The ANC has let us down with ambiguous commitments, unrealistic regulations, and played politics by undermining our approach. The President, with fanfare, announced 20 billion rand available for health responses. We now see provinces having to fend for themselves. Gauteng and the Eastern Cape now have over 50% of cases in the country, with only 700 beds available. This is nothing to rejoice in, but again highlights the incompetence of the ANC national government. We commend the Western Cape government that ensures systems are adequately prepared and livelihoods sustained. Honourable Speaker, COVID-19 is real, and we cannot sweep the disregard for human life under the carpet. This is the reality, and unfortunately so. Deputy Speaker, I wish those in health facilities and at home a speedy recovery and extend my sincere condolences to those who have succumbed to COVID-19. Let us take courage, as the only way we can stop this pandemic is by responsible behavior of every government sphere, business entity and individual. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Kama, just put your hand down. I recognise the ANC. Honourable Syed.
Chair, am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. As the African National Congress, we salute the community of Hamburg for its successful court battle against the DA-led city of Cape Town that will make the city think twice before terrorizing vulnerable communities again. The African National Congress demands action be taken against the councillors and all officials involved in this unlawful act, which the Cape High Court said was heartless and done with scant regard to the safety, security and health, particularly in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, to one resident, Mr. Janola Phillips. Councillors, including MACO members who were behind this raid on the night of Friday, 19th June 2020, need to face disciplinary action. Deputy Speaker, the DA's right wing forms the hidden hand behind the city's war on the poor. It is inconceivable that the city's unlawful actions could have been executed without the political approval from the DA's backroom White Boys Club. The African National Congress hopes that the cost order against the mayor of the city of Cape Town and against the city itself will serve as a lesson. It must still be calculated how much the total disrespect for the Constitution is costing the city and its mayor, and which legal firms are making a fortune out of the city's lawfare. The African National Congress wants to commend Hangburg activists Roscoe Jacobs, Lee Smith, and Neil Williams for uniting and mobilizing this community. They have shown that a united community can use the courts to stop the DA and its war on the poor. The DA must be forced to take its knee off poor people's necks. The African National Congress will place illegal evictions and Metro Police brutality on the agenda for discussion in the COVID-19 ad hoc committee of the provincial legislature and call city politicians and officials to account.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The EFF calls on Premier Alan Winde to remove Mr. Anton Bredell from his position as the Western Cape Minister of Local Government, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning with immediate effect. This follows a series of poor performance by his department, the latest being the 2018-2019 Municipal Audit Report, which paints a picture that under his leadership, the state of municipalities in the province has regressed with zero progression whatsoever. Under his leadership and guidance, municipalities in the Western Cape have incurred irregular expenditure totaling to 2.7 billion, with irregular expenditure of the city of Cape Town alone standing at 950 million. Majority of municipalities in the province, 55%, failed to comply with legislation, procurement regulations, and contracts as required by the Section 116 of Local Government Municipal Finance Management Act 56 of 2003. And these deviations by municipalities had a direct impact on other projects that seek to benefit the poor. The Auditor General found that supply chain management prescripts in municipalities have been disregarded altogether, resulting in contracts running way over their expiry dates, while contractors continue to fill their pockets with millions of rands. The city of Cape Town resulted in an underspending of 1.3 billion, money which would have been used to advance the housing projects in the province. Because of the minister's incompetence and negligence to properly oversee these municipalities, today people in informal settlement remain in structures that float in water as storms sweep in. The municipalities failed in their constitutional duty to use their available resources to bring about progressive realization of the right of housing as required by Section 26 of the South African Constitution. Therefore, the minister must fall. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise the DA.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, we find ourselves in the middle of Psychosocial Disability Awareness Month, a month that reminds us that the COVID-19 pandemic contributes to increased anxiety, depression, and poor mental health for many already battling exceptionally tough circumstances. Deputy Speaker, it also reminds us of the urgency to care for those who are most vulnerable. As we return from this constituency period, we expected much more to have been done on the social development front, but we have a frighteningly stark contrast in terms of what the national government's done and what the provincial government's done. The primary agency charged with providing support and safety to vulnerable residents, SASSA, refused to address the Provincial Standing Committee on Social Development this week. Minister Zulu refuses to answer our letters, and we still have no explanation for the more than 1 billion of irregular expenditure occurred by SASSA. On the other front, we see groundbreaking work being done by a Provincial Department of Social Development. The department has supported and funded residential care facilities. They have subsidized the salaries of caregivers involved in daycares. And for the elderly, over 15,000 masks have been made available to old age homes. Deputy Speaker, to make even clearer the contrast between these two fronts, let us consider ECDs, spaces that provide care and learning for many young people, but it has taken a court order to get Minister Zulu and her department to allow ECDs to open. The province, in contrast, has provided food for more than 50,000 children. Minister Zulu has been forced to go to court on these matters. It says a lot about our country, and it says a lot about our Ministry of National Social Development. If these court matters have to be sorted in court, we have to ask where the leadership is when disability grants are not paid because of a shortage of doctors within SASSA. And we have to ask where's the political will and the direction when SASSA's finances are poorly managed. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. I just want to check, Honourable Murray, your hand went up and then down. Was that a point of order at any chance? Honourable Murray, do you have a point of order?
I wanted to ask for an opportunity for a member statement.
You're on the list.
Okay, thank you.
I recognise Good.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, weeks before this Parliament approved its current budget, the Westgrow Board and the Westgrow CEO, Tim Harris, concluded a new contract of employment that provided for a whopping salary increase for Harris. That salary increase was subsequently amended, but it still provides for a 43% increase in the CEO's cost of employment package. His package will now go from 2.1 million rand to 3.1 million rand, an increase of 947,000 rand, including the performance bonus. The CEO's new contract provides a salary increase of almost R500,000 rand in this financial year, plus the promise of 3% above inflation increases for the next 2 years. A 139% increase in the CEO's bonus to more than R500,000 rand, and that bonus of 520,000 rand that is provided for this in this financial year will increase to 650,000 next year and to almost 800,000 in 2022. On the 3rd of April this year, I asked Minister Mania responded to a number of questions I raised about the reappointment of Harris as the CEO of Westgrow. And Section 10 of the Westgrow Act provides for the appointment of a CEO in consultation with the minister. But Minister Mania said he was not consulted as required by the Act. Minister Mania also said that he believed firmly in the need for fiscal prudence in the current economic climate and that he was taking steps to investigate. From my calculations, we are committing 10 million rand in salary and bonuses to the CEO for the next 3 years, and this funding was provided for in the minister's budget. At a time when our country and the world is in a massive and growing recession, excessive state-funded salaries are immoral. So has the minister concluded this investigation, and what was the outcome? And if the minister was not consulted, then the appointment is ultra vires. And I call on the minister to take the steps to set the contract aside and to conclude a new contract that is more obviously in line with his belief in fiscal prudence. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise the ACDP.
Deputy Speaker, isn't it the EFF had the chance? Sorry. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the South African Democratic Teachers Union, SAGTU, and the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa, NAPTOSA, has called for schools to be closed until after the peak of the coronavirus. We, as the ACDP in the Western Cape, has called for schools to open in a responsible way. Of course, this call was based on schools adhering to all the health protocols as required by law. As part of my oversight visit with the Standing Committee of Education, as well as colleagues of the ACDP, to schools within the Western Cape, we engaged principals, teachers, pupils, and parents. Speaker, it is important to state the following. Some of our schools I visited has outstanding principals and teachers, principals who are providing excellent leadership during this extremely difficult times. Due to their leadership, the schools are excelling. However, what was very obvious was the phasing in of the opening of our schools is not a smooth sailing task. There are still many issues and need to be dealt with. And I call on the Minister of Education, the Provincial Minister of Education, to make sure that these issues brought to her attention by principals are adhered to. Speaker, to get back to the unions in question, namely SAGTU and NAPTOSA, instead of giving leadership and direction, they are causing confusion and division. And I wonder, will Saktu and Snaptoza also call teachers who do not want to work for a no work, no pay approach? No work, no pay. We cannot allow our children to lose an entire academic year. This have an incredible negative snowball effect. We were told, and we know, that 100,000 new pupils wait to enter our schooling system next year. What will happen to them? Our learners in our communities and townships of schools will be the losers in this case. The former Model C and independent schools are fully functioning. The gap between the two extremes is already big. And if we close our schools, I thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, Honourable Lily, you're waiting for your chance. So now the ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Thank you, Deputy Chief Speaker.
1 minute. Okay, that's fine. On just 1 minute, Honourable Lily, your hand is up, but there's only one opportunity here for the ANC coming up, so I'm not quite sure who's taking this opportunity.
Can you hear me?
For me, Speaker, is to indicate that part of the meeting after struggling for a very long part. I'm saying, Deputy Speaker, I'm just indicating that I'm part of the meeting after struggling for a very long time.
I'm sorry you struggled, and thank you. I recognize you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Honourable Lily. Continue, please.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Sure.
As cases of gender-based violence and femicide continue to rise in our country, we need the judiciary to send out a clear message that the country does not tolerate GBV. In this regard, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome the life sentence given to 53-year-old Luvuyo Hendricks, who was found guilty of raping a mentally disabled girl in 2016 who he was transporting to and from school. We commend Magistrate KPD for sending out a clear message to perpetrators that GBV not tolerated. Many families of victims are unhappy. Alleged perpetrators are walking free in the communities. For instance, this week, a modeling agent's boss accused of raping teen girls was granted bail by the Cape Town Magistrate Court. As the ANC, we are of the view that there should be no bail for rape accused. Tomorrow, the ANC will support the planned cavalcade and picket in Morisburg against GBV. Residents are up in arms against recurring GBV cases in the area. They want to raise awareness as well as to put pressure on judiciary to speed up investigation and prosecution against an alleged perpetrators who was charged with rape and indecently assaulting young girls in 2019. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise the DA.
Deputy Speaker Deirdre Baartman. May I start?
Yes, you may.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, on 10 July 2020, Stage 2 load shedding resumed due to generation supply constraints. One would have thought that with more than 3 months of lockdown and with demand for energy reduced amongst businesses and households, Eskom would have had sufficient time to work on critical maintenance at its stations. Luckily, if you live in the city of Cape Town and on the city grid, you would have experienced Stage 1 load shedding during Stage 2 and no load shedding at all during Stage 1. Thanks to the spare generation capacity from the Steenbras Dam. The city of Cape Town is also the only city in the country that has a dam with hydropower. It is this kind of forward thinking and political will needed from leadership when we fight not only load shedding, but also COVID-19, poverty, maladministration, and every other massive challenge we face. Deputy Speaker, winter does not simply pitch up. Winter occurs every single year, and despite a 3-month energy consumption holiday by consumers, Eskom has woken up and realized that its maintenance is not up to scratch and that we need more energy in winter than in other months. Surprise. This year will be the 13th year since load shedding commenced in South Africa. In fact, I remember in 2007 and 2008 studying accounting for my grade 11 and grade 12 exams with a faithful candle by my side during load shedding, desperately attempting to make my books balance, which it never did since the National Curriculum of Education always had mistakes in their papers. Since the 2020 State of the Nation address promises, President Ramaphosa, Minister Mantashe, Minister Gordon have had a horrible energy track record. The President promised that the bid window 5 of the Renewable Energy IPP program would open up. This is yet to occur. The President promised that measures will be put in place for municipalities in good financial standing to procure power from IPPs. And despite the new regulations being gazetted regarding these municipalities, the regulations are so vague and do not provide any clarity. They might as well not have been gazetted. And similarly, we are still waiting for Eskom to be restructured. If Eskom cannot provide electricity, then we must do so ourselves. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Marais, you finally are on course to speak. Over to you.
Late than never, hey.
Speaker, my hand was up.
No, I have a 1 minute, Honourable Marais. Honourable Smith, I have a list and the ANC are complete. I have Al-Jamar and then I have another DA.
I have a point of order, Speaker.
Okay, apologies. What's your point of order?
No, Speaker, my point of order is, does the rules allow a member to get emotional in a statement or a speech?
That's not a point of order.
That's not a point. Thank you, Honourable Smith. Can we move over to Honourable Marais, who's waited patiently for his chance? Over to you, Honourable Marais.
Thank you, Speaker. The Freedom Front Plus advocates the evolution of power to the lowest, most effective level of government. And note the DA's resolve, as reported recently by the Minister of Agriculture, the Honourable Dr. Ivan Meyer, that the DA support a policy of subsidiarity, which equates to federalism. It is heartening to hear that the spirits of former leaders like Dr. Zak de Beer, Dr. Frederick van Zyl-Slabbert, Harry Swaz, Colin Eglin is still alive in the DA and welcomes the DA to the fight to join the Freedom Front in the fight for a federal dispensation for the Western Cape. We are very heartened by this declaration for favorably considering subsidiarity. We wouldn't be in the mess we are now on various fronts, from education to local government to agriculture to police, if the Western Cape had the powers and authority to decide for themselves what is in the best interest of the people of South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Marais. Is the Al-Jamar here? No. I recognise the DA.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, on Sunday during the President's address to the nation on COVID-19 pandemic in South Africa, Ramaphosa reiterated the call for saving lives as our first priority. On the 3rd of March 2020, before South Africa reported its first case. Deputy Speaker.
1 minute, Honourable Allen. Members, can you please put yourselves on mute? Continue, Honourable Allen.
On the 3rd of March, before South Africa reported its first case, the international COVID-19 death toll was already alarming. World stock exchange prices dropped dramatically. On that very same day, 58 people were murdered in our country, but it appeared that we continued as business per usual. Speaker, during the current month, 12 people have already lost their lives due to gang violence. Just last week, a young life was claimed by a stray bullet in Kraaifontein. The loss of lives due to gang violence is not unknown to our president, nor to the National Minister of Police. And in terms of the 2019 crime stats, the biggest causative factors of murder in the Western Cape are gang-related, as 83.75 of all gang-related murders in the country occur here in the Western Cape. Furthermore, 34% of all drug-related crimes in South Africa occur in our province. In 2017-2018, the figure was 36%. These stats contribute to citizens losing faith in our criminal justice system, making them feel unsafe in their homes and communities. Extreme and immediate action needs to be taken in order for us to start to keeping citizens safe. The aim, Speaker, is not to divert attention away from the severity of the COVID-19 crisis, but a call towards the recognition of the safety of each and every citizen. COVID-19 also highlighted the heavy-handedness of police and how the system continued to fail women and children. My call today, Speaker, is that we begin to prioritize lives lost due to crime as much as we try to save lives during this pandemic. We cannot accept a rate of 58 murders per day. Every resident in our province, their life is valuable, and every effort should be made to ensure that our communities are safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Allen. I recognise, is the Al-Jamaa Party online? I might not have waited long. Oh, there you are.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Over to you. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Speaker, under these very trying situations, we are aware that much strain is placed at our healthcare facilities. We have heard complaints from various people attending day clinics about the long queues, which are putting strain on the elderly and those not feeling well. At the Lotus River Day Hospital, people reported that during the bitterly cold and stormy weather this week, they had to stand in long queues outside the hospital without any cover and seatings. We are calling on citizens to adhere the COVID-19 regulations, and they are trying their best. I'm sure the scenario at the Lotus River Day Hospital is the same at other hospitals. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable America, is that a point of order? No, if you can just put your hand down. In terms, honourable members, in terms of Rule 145, I'll now give one minister an opportunity to respond to one of the members' statements. Any minister?
Deputy Speaker?
Yes, Speaker? I hear you, Honourable Schaefer.
Thank you very much. I would just like to particularly respond to Honourable Christian's statement and thank him for his views supporting the opening of schools, which we agree with in the manner in which it has been done, and also just to agree with him completely. The quality of leadership at schools is crucial in ensuring that all the procedures are properly followed, and it's very disappointing when processes aren't actually properly followed. I also agree that the calls of SATRA and NAPTOSA, they are, for me, rather concerning because we've already lost about 3 months of schooling at the moment, which not only has very, very dire educational consequences for the children themselves, but also for our economy. And when you look at the actual figures of people who have been infected at schools, there is absolutely no evidence at all that the virus is being spread to people at schools. So I think the calls are really need to be extremely carefully weighed up when you look at the actual facts, not broad statements and allegations that are made by unions that are representing generally teachers only. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable members, that concludes statements for the day. I'm just checking in if the Honourable Speaker is online and ready to take over. There he is.
Deputy Speaker.
Handing over to you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Good afternoon, honourable members. Almost I can say good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. Now we're getting into notices of motion. Just for the record, honourable members, we have 4 notices of motion and 64 motions without notice, and that's a number. That's quite a number. At this stage, I would like to deal with the notices of motion, and I recognize Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker, and welcome. Speaker, the ACDP moves with notice that the House debates the recent taxi violence in the Western Cape. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. I now recognize Honorable Brenkes.
Thank you, Speaker. The Al-Jamaa moves, and we want to thank all the frontline workers, like the nurses and the doctors and all the administrative and cleaning staff
Honorable
of our
Brenkes.
hospitals. Yes.
Honorable Brenkes.
Yes,
That is a motion without notice. Now we're still with the notices of motion, sir.
Oh.
All right. We'll accommodate you on the notices, on the motions without notice. Now I recognize Honorable Christians again.
Thank you, Speaker. The ACDP moves that the House debates the ongoing call on the South African Democratic Teachers Union to close the Western Cape schools with immediate effect. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. I now recognize Honorable Makamba Pocha. Manov.
Thank you, Speaker, and welcome. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters to give notice that I shall move that the House debate the 2018-2019 contents of the Auditor General's report as far as they relate to audit outcomes of the Western Cape municipalities. The report titled "Not Much to Go Around, Yet Not the Right Hands Until." Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Makamba Pocha. Honorable members, that concludes the notice of motion. I now go to motions without notice. I recognize the ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the ACDP wants to emphasize and point out our unsung heroes not seen. While we all rightfully give honor to our medical professionals and essential workers, but today we as the ACDP want to honor and acknowledge other hospital staff, such as cleaners and porters. We are referring to a recent article highlighted these unsung heroes whose daily sacrifices were not recognized, even though they play a pivotal role in contributing to the stemming of the COVID-19 virus, which is approaching its peak. To be specific, Speaker, cleaners get up in the early hours of the morning to keep our hospitals clean. Porters move equipment to numerous medical equipment. They move numerous medical equipment between various areas, and they are sometimes, most of the times, not mentioned. So on behalf of the ACDP, we would like to honor our porters, our cleaners, for the long hours that they work. We thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. I would like to draw attention to your motion, Honorable Christians. It is more of a statement, but I've allowed you to proceed. I just want to draw your attention to that specific area, but I'm sure in future you will understand. I'm fine with what you've done, but for the future, Honorable Christians. I now recognize.
Thank you, Speaker.
You're welcome, sir. I now recognize Honorable Brenkes.
Thank you, Speaker. Daljama also would like to thank our frontline workers, like the nurses and doctors and the administrative and cleaning staff of our hospitals and clinics, and all those in the private practice, and also our essential workers who keeps our country running in these smoothly despite all these challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Brenkes. I now recognize Honorable Makamba Pocha.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise on behalf of economic freedom fighters that the House notes with sadness the untimely and unexpected passing of the struggle icon and youth activist Mama Zinzi Mandela. We further note that her passing has deprived our nation of an activist for liberation and democracy, who would have loved to see the resources of this country being shared evenly amongst the majority of our people. The EFF acknowledged that we must learn and emulate the bravery and selflessness demonstrated by the struggle icon, Mama Zinzi Mandela. We convey our condolences to her sister Zanani, her children, and the rest of the Matigizela and Mandela family. Lala Mokolo Madlam, I so move. Thank you.
Enkosi Kakulu, Honorable Makamba Boja. Now we recognize Honorable Marais Akbare.
Thank you so much, Speaker, and welcome. I'm so glad to see you again.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
I hereby move without notice that this House resolve and request the Health and Social Ministerial Cluster to launch a campaign whereby people are tested for diabetes and warned of its dangers as the second largest cause of the high death rate among COVID-19 infected people, as reported yesterday by the head of the Health Department in the Western Cape. Secondly, that the availability and supply of chronic medication at all state health facilities be investigated and reported on by the relevant ministers, especially the Minister of Health, to stop this high death rate amongst COVID-19 infected people. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Marais. You had a nice blend there of emotion, a notice of emotion, and a motion without notice. But we've noted your motion, it has been recorded. Let me move to Honorable Wenger, the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move without notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that the House extends its deepest condolences to the Mandela and Madikizela family on the passing of Zinziswa Zinzi Nobutu Mandela. Speaker, our nation will never forget the bravery of Zinzi in reading her father's letter before the entire country when rejecting the apartheid government's conditional release of the late Nelson Mandela. Speaker, I further move that the House notes Zinzi Mandela's contribution as an activist, poet, and ambassador for the country, and that we are all the poorer for this loss. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip, and now recognize Honorable Barnes.
Mr. Speaker, does the House agree?
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Are there any objections to the motion, honorable members? No objections.
No objections. No objections.
Motion agreed to. Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Whip. Thank you for reminding me. Honorable Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the ANC, I move without notice that the House notes COVID-19 spares no one and claims lives of professional people like judges, celebrities, heroes like sport, stars, and workers alike. Also notes the tragic death of another Cape Town medical doctor, like well-known Dr. Ibrahim Khan, who had his practice in Salt River and treated many of his patients for free. Further notes that the 70-year-old died in a high care unit on Monday, and that legislature sends condolences to all his family and friends. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Barnes. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. Thank you, honorable members. I now recognize Honorable Bosman.
Mr. Speaker, I move without notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House extends its heartfelt condolences to the family and loved ones of the late Member of Parliament, Ms. Thandi Mpambo Sibukwana. Speaker, Thandi was an outstanding public servant with a sincere conviction for the upliftment of all South Africans. She tirelessly served at both the National Council of Provinces and most recently the National Assembly. Speaker, Tandi will be remembered for her active fight against poverty, inequality, and her determination to see the housing backlog eliminated, and her deep compassion for persons with disabilities. Speaker, I move that this House further extends its condolences to the constituents of Saldanha, Drakenstein, and Oostenburg South, all of whom Tandi served with great care during her time as a public representative. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Bosman. I now recognize honorable members. Are there any objections to the motion being read without notice?
No objections.
No objections. Motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Syed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes many educators who had contact with corona-positive patients, regardless of clear departmental protocols, are continuing to attend school, and that even some principals are said to be continuing to work, and that they are not basically isolating to prevent further contamination, as is the case at the Brooklands Primary School in North Pine. And we call on the Honourable Education MEC, Debbie Schaefer, to ensure compliance by all the WCED policies on the serious medical emergency and pandemic. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Syed. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice?
Yes, facts are incorrect.
All right, there is an objection. The motion will be recorded in the order paper. Thank you very much.
Not surprised.
Thank you, Honorable Syed. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable America.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I move without notice that the House extends sincerest condolences to the family and loved ones of the late Langeberg Municipality's Mayor, Alderman Henry Jansen. Speaker, Mayor Jansen was a valued member of the Western Cape government for many years, most recently taking his position as mayor in 2016. Speaker, furthermore, Mayor Henry Jansen passed away on the 14th of July 2020. Our thoughts and prayers are with his loved ones and strength, and wish comfort and strength to his family in this difficult time. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable America. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Syed.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes the serious structural damages to schools with the recent storms and rains, like at Nomzamo High in Strand, Blue Mountains Primary in Durbanville, Kleinburg Primary, and the and St. Mark's Primary, Speaker, and that we call on the Department of Education to urgently effect repairs to these schools, and that we ensure that permanent structures are erected at these particular schools, as they've been waiting for far too long for permanent buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Syed. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed to. I now move to Honorable Botha.
Thank you very much, Speaker. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move a motion without notice that this House extend our sincere condolences to the families, friends, and colleagues of our teachers and staff members within the WCED who have lost their lives at this time. Further, that this House notes their dedication to have taught our learners and their invaluable service to our school communities. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Botha. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Smith.
Thank you, Speaker. I move a motion without notice that the House notes no child must be refused or sent home alone if they come to school without a face mask, that especially poor learners must be assisted in a way that their education is not interrupted, and notes to this instruction came from the National Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma after a grade 7 learner was turned away by a KZN school and raped. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Smith. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now move to Honorable Philander.
Honourable Speaker, I move without notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House extends our sincere condolences to all healthcare workers who have lost their lives to COVID-19 whilst working on the front lines and serving patients. We will long remember their dedicated and brave service to the people of our province, especially in the light of the severity of this pandemic. Our thoughts and our prayers are with their loved ones, their friends, and their colleagues. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Philander. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now move to the Honorable Bagubagu Force.
Thank you, Speaker. I move with motion without notice that the House notes the death of Shaikh Siraj Hendricks, who succumbed to COVID-19 a week ago. Also notes that 64-year-old Hendricks was a revered Islamic scholar and imam at the Azawiya Mosque and Institute in Cape Town, Woma Estate, and that this legislature sends condolences to his family and friends. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Bagubagu Force. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Allen.
Speaker, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move that this House extends our deepest condolences to the family of Galen Kibedu, who was sadly killed by a stray bullet in Kraaifontein on Saturday, the 11th of July 2020. That this House notes the innocent life that has been lost due to the ongoing gang violence in our province. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Allen. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Said.
Thank you, Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that up to 20 schools per day in the Western Cape are closed due to COVID-19 related problems, that not a day goes by without another person falling ill, and that we also note that almost 100 members of staff and 2,000 learners are infected according to WCED figures themselves, and that we call on WCED to protect the health and safety of every learner entrusted to them as the pandemic reaches new heights. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Said. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to.
Thank you.
I now recognize Honorable Van der Westhuizen.
Speaker, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this House sends its sincerest condolences to Member Albert Fritz, member of the Executive responsible for community safety, on the passing of his sister, Mari Fritz, on Monday, the 13th of July, 2020. Speaker, this follows the recent passing of Minister Fritz's mother. We wish Minister Fritz and his family strength and courage in dealing with these losses at such a difficult time. Our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family and other loved ones. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Van der Westhuizen. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Said.
Thank you, Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that the Emil Wieder Secondary School in the Overberg was successful in restoring transport for learners, and that we congratulate all in that rural community who work tirelessly to ensure that these children of farm workers can further their education and lives, and that we also commend the Department of Education in the province for the hard work that it has done in this regard, and for cooperating with the African National Congress, and for their positive responses. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Said. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice?
Yes,
No.
to the African National Congress part.
Is that an objection, Honorable Minister Schaefer?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
There was
There's
good
an objection.
cooperation, Speaker.
Objection
the
is
minister,
noted,
I commend
and the
the
motion
minister.
will be recorded in the order paper. I now move to Honorable Allen.
Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move a motion without notice that this House notes the removal of Bulelani Kolani from his home in Khayelitsha and the subsequent investigation underway, that the House condemns all forms of police brutality, the violation of human rights and dignity, and condemns violent protests which threaten life or property or vandalize municipal assets. And that this House condemns actions of those who profit from the sale of illegally invaded land and who instigate land invasions and protests to protect vested and criminal financial interests. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Allen. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed.
Allen must submit to the police the evidence.
I now recognize Honorable Barnes.
Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the ANC, I move without notice that the House notes the passing of Estelle Moulton and sends condolences to her sister boss of Bush radio station, Brenda Leonard of Mitchell's Plain, their friends, family, and comrades. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Barnes. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed to. I now move to Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move without notice that this House wishes Premier Alan Winde of the Western Cape a speedy and full recovery after testing positive for COVID-19, that we nonetheless thank the Premier for his leadership in fighting the pandemic in the province, that we further wish a speedy and full recovery for the Premier of the Northwest, Honorable Jacob Mokgoro, the Premier of the Gauteng, Member of the Western Cape Parliament, Rachel Winvogel, and all other affected public representatives who have tested positive for COVID-19, and that we sincerely thank healthcare workers for their continued fight on the front lines and wish those all who are infected a speedy recovery, and extend condolences to the families who have been hit hardest by the loss of life due to COVID-19. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice?
Definitely not, sir.
No objections. Motion agreed to. Honorable members, I recognize Honorable Bagubagu Force.
Thank you, Speaker. I move motion without notice that the House notes the brave attempt by Yusuf Kripoto, who a week ago also fell into the strong flowing stormwater. Sorry.
It's okay, ma'am.
Sorry about that. Stormwater canal in the Athlone informal settlement of Vegiskral, trying to save the 8-year-old Abida Pauls, and notes both are missing and presumably drowned. Enkosi, Speaker.
Wamgelekile ma'am, Sabo. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Porter.
Thank you, Speaker.
Speaker, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move a motion without notice that this House condemns the attempted disruptions and shutdown of several schools across the province and notes with concern that these disruptions violate the rights of learners who wish to attend school and further hampers the process of a safe return. I so move.
Objection.
Thank you, Honorable Porter. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice?
Yes, there's a motion. There's a
Please. All right, thank you. There is an objection. Objection is noted and the motion will be recorded on the order paper. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Mvimbi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the African National Congress, I move a motion without notice that the House commiserate with the family, friends, and comrades of the Western Cape Director of Transport Safety Management, Mark Johnson, who succumbed to a COVID-19 related disease. I so moved.
Thank you, Honorable Mvimbi. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now move to Honorable Allen.
Speaker, I move without notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes and celebrates Mandela Day, taking place this Saturday, the 18th of July. Speaker, Mandela Day is celebrated by providing 67 minutes of service towards others. I further move that this House encourages all residents to actively participate in helping others at this time and to do so in keeping the 5 golden hygiene rules and social distancing in mind at all times. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Allen. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Lily. All right, let's proceed. I recognize Honorable Bosman.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that July is Psychosocial Disability Awareness Month. Speaker, the month is an opportunity to reflect on the impact of the current pandemic on those suffering from mental health challenges, and a reminder for all of us to do our utmost to care for affected family members and loved ones who face depression, anxiety, and other mental illness. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Bosman. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Lecker. Honorable the Chief Whip of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby move that the House notes the sadness of the death of a 59-year-old Denmark ambassador Zinzi Mandela just a few days ago before the world on Saturday celebrates the Mandela Day of Goodwill on her late father's birthday commemoration, and notes President Cyril Ramaphosa as a remark of this daughter of the father of our nation and the late Winnie Mandela Madikizela that Princess Zinzi was a fearless political activist, a leader in her own right, and notes her son Zondwa revealed to SABC that she tested positive to COVID-19. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Lecker. I would like to put to the House whether there are any objections to the motion being read without notice. No objections, motion agreed to. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Batman. I could not ignore you, Honorable Batman, because you're looking at me.
Yes, my video is on. I had to make sure. Okay, thank you, Speaker.
Yeah, welcome.
On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion without notice that this House notes that Langsburg High School has been approved by the Western Cape Department of Education as a no-fee school, and that it will be receiving a public Wi-Fi point, which will not only benefit the learners, but also the surrounding communities. The Wi-Fi will be received from the Department of the Premier. Further notes that the Western Cape Department of Education approved 10 new smart classrooms to be installed in Acacia Primary School. The installation includes 10 laptops, 10 white e-boards, 10 e-beams, and 5 e-readers for interactive digital learning. Also notes that the Department of Premier is installing a public Wi-Fi point at the primary school, which means learners, teachers, and surrounding community members can access 3 gigabytes per device per month for free. And thanks the Department of the Premier and the Department of Education for assisting children and our rural communities moving into the digital age. Thank you. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Partman. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I would like to move with notice that this House commends the action of the...
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
All right. Honorable Dagmo, will you please take your seat? Honorable the Chief Whip, what's your point of order?
The Honourable Dugmore is attempting to move a motion with notice, but we've already passed that opportunity. We're now on motions without notice.
I haven't picked that up. Let us give him an opportunity again and see what the structure of the motion. Thanks, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable the Leader of the Opposition, will you please come in with your motion again? Yeah,
clearly, Speaker, I am aware that we are on the item of motions without notice. Sorry, motions without notice. I'm moving a motion without notice.
You may proceed, Honorable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I would like to move without notice that this House commends the Solidarity Fund for its donation to hospitals within the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and Gauteng, amounting to millions of rands, which will be directed at improving and supporting the conditions of various hospitals in these 3 provinces. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable the Leader of the Opposition. Are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Honorable members, motion agreed to. I now move to Honorable Bagubagu Force.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the ANC, I move motion without notice that the House notes the communities of Kaelicha and Mitchell's Plains still searches for Lena Lunamandla and Lunamandla Stonga, who a week ago got into a taxi to the Eastville Primary School but never reported there. I so move, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Bagubagu Force. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. No objections. Motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Allen.
Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move that this House welcomes the new intake of students at the Chrysalis Academy on Saturday, the 11th of July 2020, that this House wishes each and every enrolled student well on their 10-week journey at the Academy, and that this House further notes the 20 years of existence of the Academy and the life-changing effect it has had on the young lives of many in our province. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Allen. Honorable members, are there any objection to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed to. I now move to Honorable Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes the daily alcohol-related trauma incidents treated in 5 Western Cape hospitals dropped by 40 to 50% during the previous lockdown ban. And National Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize says the up to 160 cases then fell to an average of 89 incidents per day. The House further commends government for bringing back alcohol restriction during the height of the epidemic. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Barnes. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice?
Object.
Is that an objection?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, all right. Objection is noted and the motion will be recorded in the order paper. Thank you, honorable members, honorable Barnes. I now recognize Honorable America.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I move without notice that the House congratulates all municipalities that receive clean audits within the Western Cape as they continue to build sound financial trust within local government. Speaker, several of these municipalities have received clean audits for the first time, all of these being DA-led municipalities. Speaker, this House further notes that these victories have been achieved for the benefit of all citizens within the Western Cape. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable America. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objection.
Objection.
Objection. All right.
Objection, Speaker.
Honorable members, there is an objection. The motion will be recorded in the order paper. The objection is noted. I have Honorable Lily back in the House. I now wish to recognize Honorable Lily.
Honorable Speaker, a motion without notice. I wish this House could condemn the actions of the city of Cape Town, demolishing people's properties during lockdown. I so move. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Lily. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice?
Object.
Objection is noted, and the motion will be recorded in the order paper. Honorable members, I now move to Honorable Leke, Honorable the Chief Whip of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House commends the SAPS for arresting and taking to court another 2 young males, murder suspects, both aged 19, for bringing the suspects to 5 after the last month's killing of attacks in the area of Philippi East. I so move.
Thank you, honorable members. Honorable Leke, I now recognize is there any objection, honorable members, in the motion being read without notice? No objection. Thank you. The motion is now recorded as such. There's no objection. And now we move to Honorable Batman.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion without notice that this House welcomes the announcement of the newly launched Western Cape Tourism Product Development Fund by the Provincial Department of Economic Development and Tourism, recognizes that the initiative pledges a total of 5 million rand to both current and new tourism products in the province, notes that the funding initiative, which will be utilized for tourism-related activities since this is one of the industries that have been negatively impacted by COVID-19 pandemic, further notes that the aim of this fund is to ensure that adequate support is provided for the establishment and promotion of sustainable tourism within the Western Cape, Also notes that the National Minister of Tourism and Presidency has backtracked on regulations which would have allowed much more of the leisure tourism to safely operate, and calls upon the National Minister of Tourism to announce a comprehensive tourism relief package for the tourism sector as a whole and gazette regulations to open up leisure accommodation. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Bartman. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable the Leader of the Opposition. Honorable Dagmo. Honorable members, I now move to Honorable Masego.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I move without notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that the House condemns in the strongest possible terms the intimidation of housing beneficiaries. Speaker, on the 7th July 2020, a group of disruptive Joe Slovo informal settlement community members in Langa blocked 56 other residents the opportunity to move to their homes in Forest Village. Part of those that should be moving are 2 disabled people, of which one is 62-year-old and a 63 and 71-year-old in this group. Speaker, that the House notes we will not allow criminal acts to incite violence and endanger innocent residents. We welcome the South African Police Services to conduct a full investigation into the violent and criminal acts activities to ensure that those responsible face the full might of the law. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Masego. Honorable members, are there any objection to the motion being read without notice? No objection, motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Dagmo.
Thank you very much, Speaker. My apologies for missing your direction there, but I would like to move without notice, Speaker, that the House commiserates and sends its condolences to the family, friends, and comrades of the SACP Brian Bunting Regional Secretary, Comrade Siyabulela Siswana, who was 44 years of age, and his 6-year-old daughter, Banele, who were murdered in a hail of bullets in a hit at his Imfuleni house, in which his wife, Nokwanda, was seriously wounded by gunshots, and wishes her a speedy recovery while sending our sincerest condolences to Comrade Siswana. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Dagmo. I now, Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections, motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Bagbago Force.
Thank you, Speaker. I move on behalf of the ANC motion without notice.
You may proceed, ma'am. Honorable Bagubagu Force.
Can you hear me, Speaker?
Yes, I can hear you, ma'am. You are in the House.
I move motion without notice that the House notes yet another woman recently died at the hands of a person that should care for them, and notes the 21-year Roderick Porter appeared in the Herman's Court after the body of his former girlfriend, 18-year-old Bridgeway Singers, a Hans by school learner, was found murdered. I so move, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Bagubagu Force. Honorable members, are there any objection to the motion being read without notice? No objection. Motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this House extends its gratitude to the Dutch Consulate for donating 530 food parcels in Mitchells Plain, and further welcomes their commitment alongside with Run for Schools in the Netherlands to help families in need who are coping with reduced incomes during this time of COVID-19. That this House also extends its gratitude to the local retailer Yebo Fresh for initiating these food drives. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objection. Motion agreed to. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Kama.
Thank you, Speaker. I move a motion on behalf of the ANC without notice that the House urges SABS to speed up the murder investigation on a George Couple, 26-year-old Fairmark and 31-year-old Fleck, whose bodies with gunshot wounds were found on Friday in a Bexer house. I so move, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kama. Honorable members, are there any objection to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed to. I now recognize Honorable Bartman.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion without notice that this House notes that Stellenbosch is the first African destination to be awarded the Safe Travel Stamp during the COVID-19 pandemic by the World Travel and Tourism Council. Further notes that the WTCC works with private sector tourism in across 185 countries and have developed world-class protocols for adoption by municipalities, tourism bodies, and establishments at this time. Also notes that the accreditation of the Safe Travel Stamp requires adherence to stringent hygiene and safety protocols. An application process to the WTTC is followed in which applicants must demonstrate health and safety processes, staff training, flexibility in reservation terms, and compliance with the new normal guidelines from the global body, and congratulate Stellenbosch Municipality for this achievement. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Batman. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion being read without notice? No objections. Motion agreed to. Honorable members, at this point, I would like to draw attention to the following. We have this session in a virtual platform, meaning that any movement or sound whilst your microphone is on, it disrupts the session and is something that I would like you to correct so that your phone is either on mute, or if you can't keep it on mute for whatever reason, at least make sure that it is not on loud. So find any other alternative. I don't want to say switch it off, just try and keep it on mute so that it does not go off or making the sound whilst we're in the meeting. Now, I see Honorable the Chief Whip. Is that a point of order?
In not so many words, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to draw your and the House's attention to the fact that there is a budget committee scheduled at 5:30, as well as a standing committee on community safety and cultural affairs and sports at 6 p.m. Both of these are regarding legislation with briefings from the NCOP and national departments. Both deal with legislation with very tight deadlines, especially in the case of the DORA. So given so, I hope that we might enjoy the support of the House, and I'd like to then propose on a motion without notice that any motions without notice that have not been tabled by 5:30, please stand over to our next sitting.
Honorable Chief Whip, thank you very much for drawing me to that. That's the question I would like to put to the House. Honorable members, are there any objections to the proposal by the Chief Whip?
I don't oppose it.
No objections.
No objections. Motion agreed to. Thank you, honorable members. It is now past. All the motions that have not been moved will now stand over to the next sitting. and shall therefore be entertained at that stage. At this point, honorable members, I would like to really thank you for having endured up to now. It's been a great sitting as always. For the next sitting, we will have a hybrid approach where some members will be in the house and some will be in the virtual platform. And I will certainly be in the house in the speaker's seat, because this one is a virtual seat, as you can see. And I look forward to seeing all of you. Either those will be virtual and those that will be in the house with me. The communication in this regard will be forthcoming from myself and the administration. At this point, thank you very much. The sitting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a great evening.